Imagine a room where the walls are made of soft, breathing twilight. The light here is neither day nor night, but that quiet, violet hour when the world outside slows its spinning and the dust motes hang suspended in beams of silver moonlight. The air is cool, undisturbed, and smells faintly of old paper, dried lavender, and rain-washed leaves. You're standing at the edge of a vast, tranquil lake, its surface so perfectly still that it mirrors the glowing dust of the galaxies above. This water is the deep, quiet reservoir of the human self. As you watch, a single, golden leaf detaches from an ancient oak at the water's edge. It drifts downward, carving a slow, spiralling, weightless path through the cool air before settling silently onto the water. The ripples it creates expand outward, gentle and perfectly rhythmic, touching every distant shore of the mind. This is the landscape of your inner world, the vast and intricately beautiful territory of human character. You do not need to memorize the pathways of this place. You do not need to hold tightly to the ideas that will drift like that golden leaf across your awareness tonight. Just let your mind soften, unclench the jaw, let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Allow the words to wash over you like a warm, slow tide. Some thoughts will linger, painting a quiet picture in your imagination, and others will slip away seamlessly into the mist. Whatever stays, stays. Whatever fades is meant to fade. You're entirely safe here, invited only to listen, to breathe, to rest, and to let the fascinating hidden architecture of human nature reveal itself in its own unhurried, peaceful time. As you look across the tranquil surface of this inner lake, you might notice how the air temperature shapes the soft mist rising from the water. In the waking world, the climate of the places we call home does something remarkably similar to the foundation of our character. Researchers examining the vast, diverse tapestry of human populations have discovered a profound, quiet relationship between the ambient temperature of our childhood environments and the adult personalities we eventually develop. It seems that growing up in regions where the temperature hovers perpetually around a mild, temperate 22 degrees Celsius, a perfect perpetual springtime, leaves a permanent, gentle imprint on the mind. In these mild climates, where the air is neither biting cold nor blisteringly hot, people naturally tend to grow into adults who score significantly higher on measures of agreeableness, emotional stability, and openness to new experiences. The soft, forgiving weather encourages the opening of doors, the gathering in public squares, and the leisurely evening walks under temperate, starry skies. The physical environment itself does not force the nervous system into states of constant defense, shivering preservation, or overheated exhaustion. Instead, a kind, forgiving climate nurtures a kind, forgiving disposition. The mind, mirroring the gentle weather of its youth, learns to be a hospitable place, welcoming the varied emotional seasons of life with a steady, unruffled calm. This beautiful reflection of the environment in our inner world reminds us that we are deeply intertwined with the natural order, a truth that becomes even more comforting and apparent when we look into the quiet eyes of the creatures who share our earth. The architecture of personality is not a purely human invention. The fundamental building blocks of character, often known as the core traits of openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and emotional stability, are incredibly ancient, echoing back through millions of years of deep evolutionary history. If you have ever sat quietly in a dense green forest and watched a flock of birds, or observed the careful, deliberate movements of a solitary animal at the edge of the woods, you are witnessing personality in motion. Biologists have identified distinct, measurable personality traits in over 100 different, vastly varied species. From the playful curiosity of a coastal octopus exploring a submerged, pearlescent shell, to the shy caution of a deer listening to the wind, to the bold leadership of a matriarch elephant guiding her herd across the vast, moonlit savanna, the spark of individual character exists everywhere. A bird might be inherently bolder than its sibling, always the first to explore a new swaying branch. A dog might possess a deep genetic well of unending agreeableness. Knowing this connects us to a vast, ancient lineage of feeling and behaving. We are not isolated in our psychological complexities. We are simply playing our own unique, beautiful notes in a grand, biological symphony of character that has been humming softly across the planet since the very dawn of life. As time moves forward in this grand planetary symphony, so too does the shape of our own individual character. There is a common, heavy misconception that personality hardens like concrete as we enter adulthood, setting into an unyielding, rigid mould. But the reality is far more forgiving, fluid, and profoundly beautiful. The careful study of human lives over decades reveals a gentle, natural phenomenon known to psychologists as the maturity principle. Just as a rough, jagged stone placed in a flowing mountain river is slowly, perfectly smoothed by the water's persistent, gentle touch, our personalities tend to soften and polish themselves as we journey through the years. With the passing of time, the sharp edges of youthful impulsivity and the heavy turbulence of early emotional storms naturally begin to wear away. We consistently, reliably grow more agreeable, more deeply conscientious, and more emotionally stable. It is as if the mind, having weathered the shifting winds of early life, slowly learns the deep, enduring value of peace. We become more adept at navigating the emotional currents, more patient with the failings of others, and more reliable in our own steady, quiet rhythms. This is not a loss of passion, nor a fading of the spirit, but a masterclass in the refinement of energy. The river of time does not erode who we are, it simply washes away the excess, revealing the smooth, enduring, brilliant core of our best selves, leaving behind a profound and quiet resilience. If we were to peer inside the quiet, protected sanctuary of that resilient mind, moving beyond the realm of abstract psychology and into the physical, biological universe of the brain, we would find a landscape of breathtaking, luminous beauty. When you close your eyes and allow your thoughts to drift, just as you're doing now, your brain does not power down into total darkness. Instead, it enters what is called a resting state. In this deep quietude, vast networks of neurons begin to hum softly, communicating with each other across microscopic distances, like a sprawling city illuminating gracefully as the sun sets. Neuroscientists have discovered that the unique, glowing pattern of these neural pathways, the specific, intricate way your brain connects with itself when it's doing absolutely nothing, is a physical, biological fingerprint of your personality. The dense golden threads of connectivity between certain regions can perfectly mirror how you engage with the waking world. It means that your character is not just a collection of fleeting habits, but a living, luminous architecture inside your head. Even in your deepest illness, even when you're hovering beautifully on the very edge of sleep, the complex, glowing constellation of who you are continues to shine. A private, silent galaxy of light charting the infinite map of your soul. This living internal architecture is constantly receiving the outside world, and the way it takes in the surrounding environment varies wonderfully and mysteriously from person to person. Consider for a moment the atmosphere of a dense, damp cedar forest just after a heavy, cleansing rainfall. The air is thick with the rich, dark aroma of wet earth, crushed pine needles, and the sharp, clean, metallic scent of ozone. For those whose glowing neural pathways lean heavily toward the trait of openness, a profound curiosity and a deep appetite for art, beauty, and new experiences, the world literally smells different. Scientific studies have revealed a fascinating, invisible bridge between a highly open personality and a highly sensitive, finely tuned olfactory system. People who are naturally inclined to embrace the unknown, who love the rhythm of poetry, the colours of abstract art, and the feeling of wandering through foreign cobblestone streets, possess a measurably sharper ability to detect and differentiate subtle odours. It is as if their psychological desire to absorb the richness of life translates directly into a physical biological capacity to inhale the world more deeply. The open mind gently asks the senses to open their windows a little wider, allowing the subtle perfumes of existence, the comforting scent of old books, the crisp smell of incoming snow, the sweet fragrance of distant blooming jasmine, to write their complex, beautiful stories directly into the brain. And what do we do with all these rich sensory details, all these scents and sounds and experiences we gather over a lifetime? We weave them softly into a story. Human beings are fundamentally creatures of narrative. In the quiet, dusty, candlelit library of the mind, we are constantly sitting at an old wooden desk holding a feather quill, writing and continually rewriting the profound autobiography of our own existence. Psychologists call this our narrative identity. Your personality is not merely a list of static traits, how outgoing you are at a party, or how carefully you organize your morning routine. It is the internalized, constantly evolving story you tell about your past, your present, and your beautifully imagined future. The way you choose to frame your memories matters immensely. Do you narrate your past as a series of fortunate, illuminating lessons learned? Do you view your past challenges as necessary stepping stones that led you to greater, deeper wisdom? This quiet process, known as autobiographical reasoning, doesn't just describe your personality to the world, it actively, continuously creates it. The gentle words you whisper to yourself in the dark, the way you construct the grand mythology of your own life, slowly sculpts the person you become in the daylight. You are gracefully occupying two spaces at once. You're both the brave protagonist navigating the mysterious forest of life, and the wise author sitting safely by the fire, deciding what the journey truly means. Yet, as we author this beautiful, complex story of the self, we must realize that we are not entirely alone in the drafting process. Deep within the physical vessel of our bodies, there exists a hidden, microscopic world that quietly, consistently influences the narrative we write. Imagine a vast, vibrant, bioluminescent coral reef, teeming with billions of tiny, brilliant life forms, all working in perfect rhythmic harmony. This is the ecosystem of the human gut microbiome. In recent years, science has uncovered a profound, almost magical connection between this flourishing internal garden and the psychological landscape of our personality. The trillions of microscopic companions residing safely within us produce vital neurotransmitters, the essential chemical messengers of the brain, like serotonin and dopamine. These tiny life forms send quiet, calming whispers up the vagus nerve, directly communicating with the centers of our mind that govern our mood, our sociability, and our feelings of peace. A thriving, deeply diverse microbial ecosystem is strongly, beautifully linked to a more sociable, extroverted disposition and a significant, measurable reduction in daily stress and anxiety. We are not just single, isolated entities wandering the earth. We are walking, breathing universes deeply reliant on the tiny, harmonious communities living safely within us to help us feel brave, grounded, and ready to embrace the light of the world. The quiet, biological whispers of our internal universe eventually find their way outward, translating themselves seamlessly into the very language we use to touch the minds of others. If you were to collect all the words a person speaks over the course of a long, peaceful month and lay them out like polished glass pebbles on a sandy shore, the patterns of those pebbles would draw a perfect, intricate map of their character. Our natural, unforced vocabulary is a direct, crystal-clear window into the architecture of our personality. Those who carry a deep, warm well of extroversion effortlessly gravitate toward words that bridge the gap between people, words of connection, inclusion, and shared joy. They speak comfortably and often of us, we, and together, pulling the world closer to them. Conversely, those who possess a high degree of openness to experience tend to string together words that are intensely sensory, abstract, and intellectually complex. They unconsciously select adjectives that paint vivid, textured pictures, describing not just what happened in a room, but the atmosphere, the colour of the light, and the underlying poetic philosophy of the moment. The mind naturally, gracefully selects the linguistic tools that best match its own internal shape. Every time we speak, we're gently painting a self-portrait in the air, revealing the specific, beautiful contours of our inner world to anyone who is truly, quietly listening. And for some, that inner world is built with an exquisite, finely tuned sensitivity that requires a much quieter, softer approach to life. The difference between an extrovert who thrives in a bustling, energetic room and an introvert who finds profound peace in the solitary silence of a rain-streaked window is not merely a social preference. It is rooted deep in the physiological hardware of the human nervous system. Deep in the brainstem lies a delicate network called the reticular activating system, the quiet gatekeeper of wakefulness and arousal. In the mind of an introvert, this gate is naturally, permanently propped wide open, allowing a steady, heavy flood of sensory information to enter at all times. They do not need loud noises or bright lights to feel awake. In fact, the ambient volume of the world is often already loud enough to stimulate their mind perfectly. This sensitivity is so deep, so profound, that it can be physically measured with something as small as a single drop of lemon juice. If you place a drop of pure, tart lemon juice on the tongue of a true introvert, they will physically produce significantly more saliva than an extrovert would. Their nervous system, ever alert, ever present, reacts to the sharp, acidic stimulus with a robust biological surge. It is a beautiful, quiet testament to how deeply the introverted mind feels and processes the world. They retreat into quiet, softly lit spaces not out of fear, but because they are capable of experiencing the profound, overwhelming intensity of a single, simple, quiet moment. As you lie here, resting in the quiet, peaceful understanding of how beautifully complex you are, from the ancient evolutionary traits you share with the animals of the forest, to the glowing, starlit networks of your resting brain, to the microscopic, harmonious gardens blooming within you, you might wonder if you're a finished masterpiece, locked forever in your current form. The final, most comforting truth of the night is that you're not made of rigid stone. You're made of soft, pliable clay, and the potter's wheel is always slowly spinning in the warm sunlight. Psychologists call it volitional personality change. Through small, deliberate, gentle shifts in our daily habits, our mental focus, and our physical environment, we possess the incredible innate power to gently mold our own character over time. If you wish to become more open, you can slowly invite new, safe experiences into your life, letting them wash over you. If you wish to become more agreeable, you can practice small, quiet acts of conscious empathy until they become an effortless second nature. The human mind is wonderfully plastic, eternally eager to adapt to the gentle, loving directions you give it. You're not trapped by the chapters of your past, nor are you defined rigidly by the blueprints of your biology. You're a fluid, ever-evolving work of art, capable of endless, beautiful, quiet transformation. And the only thing required of you right now, in this warm twilight space, is to simply rest, to let go of the day, and to allow the slow, magical, peaceful process of your own becoming to continue undisturbed in the deep, healing depths of sleep. And as that deep, healing sleep continues its slow approach, the very timing of your rest reveals another fascinating, quiet layer of your nature. Consider the beautiful, stark contrast between the first, pale silver light of dawn creeping over a silent horizon and the deep, velvety indigo of midnight, punctuated only by the distant, ancient glow of stars. Our biological preference for these different hours, whether we naturally open our eyes with the morning sun or find our energy in the moonlit shadows, is intricately woven into the biological fabric of our personality. Psychologists studying the rhythms of the human brain have found that those who naturally wake with the dawn tend to carry a heavier, comforting anchor of conscientiousness and emotional stability. They move through the waking world with the steady, reliable rhythm of the morning dew, naturally inclined toward order, careful planning, and a calm, methodical adherence to the day's gentle demands. Conversely, those whose minds spark to brilliant life in the quiet solitude of the night often exhibit significantly higher levels of openness to experience and fluid, creative intelligence. The dark, undisturbed hours offer a sanctuary from the world's bright noise, a blank, shadowy canvas where the mind can wander freely, unburdened by the structured expectations of the sunlit hours. It is a beautiful dichotomy. The morning offers a canvas of reliable stability, while the night provides a boundless, quiet landscape for the imagination to roam. As the night stretches out around you, perhaps you can imagine the low, resonant, woody hum of a cello being played in an empty, acoustically perfect room. The vibrations ripple through the cool air, invisible but deeply, physically felt, much like the way music moves through the architecture of our minds. The melodies and rhythms we effortlessly gravitate toward are not merely casual matters of passing taste. They are profound auditory mirrors reflecting our underlying psychological wiring. Researchers exploring the intersection of sound and character have discovered that the way we process the waking world predicts the sonic landscapes we seek out for comfort. Those who are naturally deep empathizers, people whose psychological landscape is built around understanding and mirroring the emotions of others, tend to drift toward music that is mellow, unpretentious, and rich in emotional depth, like soft acoustic guitar strings or the gentle, melancholy swell of a string quartet. They find deep comfort in the mirrored reflection of human feeling. Meanwhile, those who naturally systemize the world, seeking to understand complex patterns, rules, and structures, are often drawn to intense, highly structured compositions such as avant-garde jazz or intricately layered classical symphonies, where the brain can joyfully, quietly untangle the hidden mathematical patterns within the sound. Every playlist you create is a quiet, rhythmic autobiography. You do not need to analyze the songs playing in the background of your memories right now. You can simply let the body grow heavier, sinking deeper into the mattress, knowing that even your taste in sound is a perfect logical extension of your inner world. This inner world, though vast and endlessly complex, is ultimately held together by a beautiful, silent balance of forces. Picture an ancient, towering oak tree standing alone in a vast, rolling meadow. Its roots are driven deep into the dark, cool earth, immovable, thick, and secure, while its highest branches sway, bend, and dance freely in the shifting winds. This image perfectly captures the two grand, overarching meta-traits that psychologists believe govern all of human personality: stability and plasticity. Beneath the myriad of specific, tiny traits we possess, our characters are fundamentally organized around these two massive, silent pillars. Stability is the deep root system. It encompasses our emotional regulation, our innate agreeableness, and our dutiful conscientiousness, keeping us grounded, reliable, and safe when the unpredictable storms of life roll in. Plasticity is the vibrant canopy of leaves reaching upward for the sun. It represents our extroversion and our openness, our deep biological and psychological drive to explore, to connect, to grow, and to absorb the brilliant newness of the world. We are all, in our own unique individual proportions, a blend of the heavy anchor and the catching sail. We require the quiet strength to remain perfectly steady, and the vibrant flexibility to learn, adapting beautifully to whatever weather the atmosphere provides. Yet, there are times when the wind demands that we move in ways that seemingly defy our deepest, most natural roots. Imagine a traveller wrapping a thick, heavy woven cloak around their shoulders before stepping out of a warm, firelit cabin into a crisp, blindingly white, snowy morning. The cloak is not their skin, but it is entirely necessary for the journey ahead. In the study of human character, this beautiful adaptation is known as the adoption of free traits. We are never hopelessly imprisoned by our biological predispositions. A deeply introverted person, whose delicate nervous system naturally prefers the quiet solitude of a rain-streaked window, can effortlessly step onto a bright stage and speak with commanding extroverted passion if they are advocating for a cause, a project, or a person they deeply love. They wrap themselves in a temporary layer of extroversion to protect and nurture a core piece of their heart. This remarkable ability reveals the profound grace and flexibility of human nature. Our personalities are not locked cages, they are comfortable home stations. We can always venture out into foreign psychological territories, acting completely out of character for the sake of love, duty or passion, knowing that when the vital task is done, we can simply take off the heavy cloak, return to our quiet centre, and let the breath settle softly back into its natural, effortless rhythm. The mind's breathtaking ability to shift its shape and stretch its boundaries becomes even more wondrous when we consider the complex landscapes of human language. Imagine holding a finely cut, perfectly clear glass prism up to the light, turning it slowly in your fingers so that a single white beam fractures into a sudden, vibrant, dancing spectrum of shifting colours. For those who move through the world speaking more than one language, the personality performs a remarkably similar beautiful refraction. Studies of bilingual individuals reveal a fascinating phenomenon known as cultural frame switching. When a person transitions from speaking the soft, melodic vowels of one language to the crisp, structured consonants of another, their measurable personality traits subtly, automatically shift along with their vocabulary. They may naturally become slightly more assertive and direct in one tongue, and measurably more accommodating and poetic in another. This is not a fracturing of the self, but a magnificent expansion of it. Every language carries the deep ancestral weight of its culture, its specific historical ways of viewing time, family, emotion, and the space between people. By stepping into a new language, the brain gently adopts a new posture, trying on a different cultural lens. It suggests that who we are is beautifully intertwined with how we communicate, and that learning a new tongue is quite literally the discovery of a new, hidden, sunlit room within the vast mansion of the self. As you wander peacefully through these many rooms of your own identity, you might mistakenly believe that the construction is finally finished. It is a very common, very human trick of the mind to look at the present moment and assume it is the absolute final destination. Imagine standing in a quiet, warmly lit gallery, looking at an exquisite oil painting. It looks complete, perfectly framed and perfectly still. But if you were to reach out and touch the canvas, you would find the oils are actually still wet, the vibrant colours secretly moving, blending and shifting beneath the surface. Psychologists call this cognitive blind spot the end of history illusion. No matter our age, whether we are 20, 50 or 80, we tend to clearly recognise how much our personality has grown and changed in the years behind us, but we consistently, significantly underestimate how much it will continue to change in the years ahead. We believe, comfortably but incorrectly, that we have finally reached the ultimate summit of our own development. The truth is far more liberating and far more beautiful. The painting is never truly dry. The mind is a flowing river, not a stagnant reservoir. You will continue to soften, to learn, to shift your perspectives, and to uncover new gleaming facets of your character until the very last days of your life. There is no final draft of you, only a continuous, quiet, beautiful unfolding. You do not need to hold the present version of yourself too tightly tonight. You can simply let your thoughts drift, trusting the natural shaping currents of time. This continuous, quiet unfolding of our nature begins in the very first environment we ever know, the delicate enclosed ecosystem of our early family. Picture a dense sunlit garden where several small hopeful seeds have been planted close together in the dark earth. As they grow into shoots, they cannot all occupy the exact same shaft of sunlight, so they gracefully, instinctively bend and reach in slightly different directions, finding their own unique spaces to bloom. This natural, silent divergence is the true mechanism behind how birth order shapes our personality. While popular myths often assign rigid, inescapable destinies to the oldest, middle and youngest children, the scientific reality is far more nuanced, fluid and elegant. It is a deeply unconscious process of sibling niche picking. To reduce friction and find their own vital sense of identity and parental attention, children naturally differentiate themselves from their brothers and sisters. If the firstborn naturally claims the sunlit territory of serious, studious responsibility, the next child might instinctively grow toward the available light of rebellious creativity or quiet, empathetic peacemaking. We do not develop our characters in an isolated vacuum. We gently mould our personalities like soft clay, fitting perfectly into the psychological spaces left open by those we live with, creating a balanced, interlocking, breathing puzzle of human nature within a single home. The unique ways we navigate the spaces we inhabit extends far beyond the family home, bleeding continuously into the physical environments we build for ourselves as adults. Visualize two wildly contrasting spaces. On one side, a perfectly raked Japanese Zen garden, where every smooth grey stone is deliberately placed and the pale sand is traced with flawless, unbroken parallel lines. On the other, a lush, wildly overgrown Victorian greenhouse, bursting with unpredictable climbing vines, scattered terracotta pots, and a chaotic, vibrant explosion of purple orchids. Both spaces possess their own distinct, undeniable genius, perfectly mirroring the personalities of those who dwell within them. Research into human behaviour shows that our preference for tidiness or disarray is not merely a superficial measure of discipline, but a profound reflection of our cognitive priorities. Those who meticulously organise their surroundings tend to exhibit a stronger, comforting adherence to social conventions, naturally upholding community traditions and maintaining order. Yet, the untidy desk, the wildly cluttered art studio, serves a profoundly different, equally valuable psychological purpose. A chaotic, unpredictable environment unconsciously forces the brain to break away from conventional linear thinking, drawing unexpected, brilliant connections between completely unrelated concepts. The messiness is a physical manifestation of high openness, a fertile, unraked soil where highly original, highly creative ideas are most likely to take root and blossom. No matter how chaotic or pristine our present surroundings may be, the human mind possesses a magical built-in ability to instantly transport itself back to spaces that no longer physically exist. Imagine sitting in a cold, dim room and watching as invisible dust motes suddenly ignite into warm, glowing embers, floating softly around your shoulders, radiating a gentle, comforting heat against your skin. This is the profound physiological and psychological power of nostalgia. For a long time, looking backward was mistakenly viewed as a melancholic retreat, a heavy anchor holding the personality trapped in the past. But modern psychology has revealed that nostalgia is actually a vital, incredibly positive mechanism for the human spirit. When we allow ourselves to sink into warm, sentimental memories, our core personality traits temporarily, beautifully shift toward deep optimism. The brain releases a soothing cascade of neurochemicals that literally make us feel physically warmer in cool rooms, while simultaneously increasing our feelings of deep social connectedness and our sense that life has profound, enduring meaning. Nostalgia is not a trap. It is a psychological fireplace. We gather around the glowing embers of our past not to hide from the cold of the present, but to warm our hands, gather our emotional strength, and fuel our resilience for the long, beautiful journey ahead. And what happens to the human character when that journey takes us further than we ever imagined possible, entirely away from the familiar gravity of our past, our homes, and our planet? Imagine floating in absolute silent weightlessness, turning your head slowly to look out a small, thick pane of glass. There, suspended in the endless, terrifyingly beautiful ink of space, is the Earth, a fragile, glowing blue and white marble, holding every person you've ever known, every memory ever made, completely devoid of drawn borders or divisions. This singular, breathtaking visual experience triggers what psychologists and astronauts call the overview effect, resulting in one of the most rapid and profound personality shifts known to human science. Upon returning to the surface, space travelers consistently demonstrate a permanent, measurable increase in the trait of universalism. Their internal, psychological boundaries dissolve. They become deeply, intrinsically motivated by a newly forged sense of global empathy, passionate environmental stewardship, and a profound, quiet spirituality. The simple act of seeing the world from an impossible, silent distance permanently alters the architecture of the mind, shrinking personal, daily anxieties to invisible specks and expanding the heart's capacity to care for the entire fragile whole. It is the ultimate awe-inspiring reminder of our shared quiet existence. As we consider the incomprehensible vastness of that starry expanse and the tiny, miraculous breathing ecosystems thriving upon our pale blue dot, the mind naturally begins to seek patterns, looking for the invisible, shimmering threads that connect the celestial to the microscopic, the ancient past to the immediate present, slowly drifting toward the deeper mysteries of how we connect with one another in the quiet dark. Imagine sitting in a deeply comfortable, softly upholstered chair near a hearth, where embers glow in a gentle, rhythmic pulse. Across the room, a friend lets out a slow, deep sigh that turns into a luxurious yawn, and almost instantly, you feel the same involuntary stretching of your own jaw, the same deep intake of breath. This simple, sleepy echo is not merely a biological reflex. It is a profound, invisible bridge of human personality. Psychological studies reveal that contagious yawning is deeply entangled with the personality trait of empathy. Those who possess a rich, deep capacity for emotional resonance, people who naturally feel the joy and sorrow of others as if it were their own, are significantly more likely to catch a yawn from someone across a quiet room. It is a beautiful, unconscious mirroring, a physical manifestation of a psychological tether. Your body is silently communicating that you are deeply attuned to the state of the person near you, sharing in their quiet exhaustion or their peaceful descent toward rest. As you listen to these words, your own breath might naturally deepen, your eyelids growing a fraction heavier, leaning into that shared ancestral comfort of communal rest. That ability to mirror another soul extends far beyond the physical room, reaching into realms constructed entirely of ink and paper. Picture a towering ancient library, the air rich with the scent of vanilla, old bindings, and quiet concentration. When you open a novel and lose yourself in a fabricated world, you're engaging in one of the most powerful personality-shaping exercises known to science. People who score highly in the trait of openness naturally gravitate toward literary fiction, but the act of reading itself actively expands the mind's capacity for empathy. By quietly inhabiting the inner lives, the struggles, and the triumphs of imaginary characters, the brain practices a skill psychologists call theory of mind. You're safely simulating complex social and emotional landscapes, learning to view the world through 1,000 different pairs of eyes. It is a gentle, magnificent paradox. By retreating into the solitary, silent act of reading, sitting alone in a soft pool of lamplight, you're actively wiring your personality to become more deeply, profoundly connected to the real, breathing humans around you. Even without a book in hand, the mind possesses a spectacular, boundless theatre of its own. Look up, in your mind's eye, at a vast sky filled with slow-moving, billowy clouds, their edges gilded by the late afternoon sun. As you watch them drift, your thoughts might begin to unspool, drifting away from the present moment into a lush, intricate reverie. The specific texture of your daydreams is a direct reflection of your character. Researchers have identified a specific style of mind-wandering known as positive constructive daydreaming. Individuals with highly open, naturally curious personalities do not merely space out. They construct elaborate, vivid, and deeply rewarding internal landscapes. They use their quiet moments to playfully simulate future possibilities, to untangle creative puzzles, or to simply bathe in the warmth of a beautifully imagined scenario. This wandering is not a waste of time, nor a lapse in focus. It is the fertile soil of a creative personality, the mind gently playing with the raw materials of existence to see what new, wondrous shapes it might form. You can allow your own mind to drift just like that now, letting go of any need to focus, knowing that your wandering thoughts are simply the beautiful, natural expression of your inner creativity. Sometimes, that wandering mind is softly, beautifully called back to the present by a physical sensation so exquisite it feels like magic. Imagine a single, crystalline note played on a piano in an empty concert hall, the sound hanging perfectly suspended in the cool air, or a sudden, sweeping crescendo of violins that seems to fill your chest with an expanding light. If you have ever felt a sudden, electric shiver race down your spine or seen goosebumps rise on your arms in response to a beautiful piece of music, you have experienced a phenomenon known as frisson. This delicate physical thrill is a profound biological marker of personality. It is almost exclusively experienced by individuals who possess a remarkably high degree of openness to experience. Their neural pathways are wired in such a way that the auditory processing centers of the brain are deeply, unusually connected to the regions that process profound emotion and reward. They do not merely hear the music, they feel it as a profound physical wave crashing over their skin. It reveals that to have an open personality is to live in a body that is exquisitely, wonderfully sensitive to the breathtaking beauty of the world. That profound sensitivity reaches its absolute peak when we encounter things that are overwhelmingly beautifully vast. Imagine standing at the base of an ancient towering redwood tree, its trunk as wide as a house, its highest branches disappearing into a cathedral of green mist, or looking up at a night sky so utterly devoid of light pollution that the Milky Way looks like a dense glowing river of diamonds. This is the experience of true awe, and it possesses the incredible power to temporarily, dramatically alter the shape of our personality. When we are confronted with the vastness of nature or the incomprehensible scale of the cosmos, psychologists observe a rapid shift toward profound humility and increased altruism. The internal mechanism that constantly focuses on the self, the small daily anxieties, the minor grievances, the rigid ego, suddenly goes quiet. We realize, in the most comforting way possible, how beautifully small we are. This quiet realization softens our edges, making us significantly more likely to help a stranger, to share resources, and to feel a deep, unbreakable kinship with the world around us. Awe is a magnificent reset button for the soul, gently reminding us that we belong to something much grander than ourselves. We bring smaller pieces of that natural world into our homes to keep that sense of connection alive, and the companions we choose offer a soft, whispering clue about the architecture of our own minds. Picture the contrasting energy of a loyal dog racing joyfully across a wide, sun-drenched meadow, entirely eager for connection, versus a sleek cat curled perfectly into a solitary warm sunbeam on a quiet windowsill, a master of its own boundaries. The historical divergence of these companion animals beautifully mirrors a divergence in human personality traits. Extensive psychological surveys show that those who identify strongly as dog people consistently score higher in extroversion, agreeableness, and conscientiousness, valuing structured loyalty and vibrant, energetic sociability. Conversely, cat people tend to score significantly higher in openness to experience and introversion. They often champion independence, appreciating a quieter, more subtle form of affection that doesn't demand constant external validation. Our animal companions are not just pets, they are soft, breathing extensions of our own psychological comfort zones, reflecting the specific type of love and energy we need to feel truly at home in the world. When we leave those homes and move through the world, the very rhythm of our steps broadcasts our internal nature to the open air. Imagine watching a crowd from a high window on a cool grey afternoon. You see the varying tempos, the slow, meandering stroll of someone observing the architecture, and the crisp, purposeful stride of someone navigating the pavement with exact precision. Our natural, unforced walking pace is deeply tethered to our core personality traits. Decades of observational research have demonstrated that individuals who naturally walk at a faster, brisker clip tend to possess higher levels of extroversion and a strong driving current of conscientiousness. Their internal engine runs at a slightly higher, more purposeful frequency, translating psychological drive into physical momentum. Meanwhile, a naturally slower, more relaxed gait often correlates with a highly agreeable, less easily ruffled disposition. They are pacing themselves to the environment rather than trying to conquer it. As you lie resting, your own physical momentum has slowed to a perfect 0-point stillness, your body sinking softly into the mattress, allowing the deep internal engines of the day to finally power down and cool. Even when we are sitting still, engaged in quiet conversation, our bodies find ways to dance to the rhythm of our character. Picture two people talking in a warmly lit cafe. One person's hands rest quietly on their lap, while the other's hands move continuously, slicing through the air, painting invisible shapes, acting like passionate conductors of their own symphony of words. The frequency and expansiveness of our hand gestures are a direct, fluid expression of our personality. Highly extroverted and exceptionally warm individuals instinctively use broad, frequent gestures to break down the invisible barriers between themselves and their listeners. It is a deeply biological attempt to physically enclose the other person in their thoughts, to make the abstract concept tangible and shared. These gestures are not mere habits. They are the overflowing of a rich, energetic internal state that cannot be contained by vocal cords alone. The hands become the brushes with which the extroverted soul paints its vibrant emotional reality onto the canvas of the air, pulling the world closer in a warm physical embrace. If you were to lean in very close to those people conversing in the cafe, looking past their moving gestures and directly into their eyes, you might observe a phenomenon that bridges the microscopic with the psychological. Imagine a macrolens view of a human eye, the intricate golden-brown landscape of the iris expanding and contracting gracefully around the dark, fathomless pool of the pupil. We know that pupils dilate in response to shifting light or sudden fear, but the resting size of the pupil, its baseline diameter in a perfectly neutral room, holds a quiet, surprising secret about the brain behind it. Cognitive psychologists have discovered a subtle, fascinating correlation between larger baseline pupil size and higher fluid intelligence, as well as the personality trait of openness. The pupil is an exposed window to the locus coeruleus, a deep brain structure that regulates our engagement with the world. A slightly more dilated resting pupil suggests a brain that is in a constant state of quiet, intense readiness, a mind that is perpetually thirsty for new information, wide open to absorbing the complex, nuanced beauty of its surroundings. It is as if the body literally widens its lenses to capture more of the world's hidden magic. There is a deeper, entirely invisible dimension to how we connect with others, one that operates below the threshold of sight or sound, floating silently in the air itself. Consider the soft, profound comfort of breathing in the scent of a loved one's worn woolen sweater, a fragrance that instantly bypasses logic and settles deep in the emotional core of the chest. We are chemical creatures, and our bodies continuously release complex, invisible aromatic signatures. In a beautiful twist of biological poetry, science has revealed that we subconsciously use these chemical whispers to gauge personality compatibility. we are naturally invisibly drawn to the scent of people whose personality profiles perfectly mirror our own. Like attracts like is not just a social theory, it is an olfactory reality. The brain's ancient olfactory bulb processes these complex molecular clouds, silently assessing the other person's emotional stability, warmth, and extroversion before a single word is ever spoken. We are navigating the world through a vast, invisible ocean of chemical poetry, naturally finding our way toward the souls that match our own quiet, internal frequencies. As the heavy, comforting blanket of the night settles deeper around you, and the invisible rhythmic tides of sleep wash over your quiet limbs, you can marvel at the exquisite hidden architecture of your own being, preparing to drift further into the mysterious landscapes where these traits are born, where the waking mind finally surrenders to the vast, illuminating logic of the dream. That illuminating logic of the dream world is not a random, chaotic theatre, but a beautifully distorted, deeply personal mirror of your waking character. Imagine standing in a vast twilight desert where the dunes are made of crushed, softly glowing lapis lazuli, and the sky above is painted in shifting, silent ribbons of auroral light. For individuals who score remarkably high in the trait of openness, the landscapes of sleep are routinely this vivid, architecturally complex, and profoundly memorable. Psychological studies analysing decades of sleep journals reveal that a curious, profoundly open mind in the waking world does not simply shut off its thirst for novelty when the heavy eyelids close. Instead, it uses the quiet of the night to build magnificent, surreal, and deeply narrative dreamscapes. The rigid boundaries of physics and waking logic simply melt away, allowing the highly creative personality to safely explore vast emotional depths and beautifully impossible scenarios. In contrast, those who find deep, grounding comfort in structure and conscientiousness often experience dreams that are wonderfully practical, rooted securely in the familiar, reassuring textures of their daily lives. The mind, even in its most untethered, floating state of profound rest, remains completely faithful to the core of who you are, painting the infinite canvas of your sleep with the exact same psychological brushes you use to navigate the day. When those elaborate dreamscapes gently fade into the soft, early light of morning, the waking colours we instinctively choose to surround ourselves with continue to broadcast our inner nature to the world. Picture a quiet, undisturbed room bathed in the muted, calming tones of sage green, slate grey, and the pale, dusty blue of a winter sky. It is a physical space that asks absolutely nothing of the eyes, allowing the nervous system to remain entirely undisturbed and at peace. It is no coincidence that individuals with highly sensitive, introverted personalities naturally gravitate toward this cooler, quieter end of the visual spectrum. Their internal worlds are already incredibly rich, layered, and highly stimulated, so they instinctively curate external environments that lower the ambient visual noise, providing a soft psychological landing pad for their thoughts. Conversely, those carrying a deep extroverted energy are often effortlessly drawn to the warmer, more radiant hues of terracotta, mustard yellow, and deep, vibrant crimson. These colours emit a specific, measurable visual frequency that perfectly matches their internal vibrancy, acting as an external glowing battery that reflects and sustains their outward-facing joy. The shades you use to paint your walls, or the specific colour of the soft blanket currently resting over your shoulders, are silent, beautiful echoes of your mind's specific need for stimulation or perfect peace. That instinctual search for comfort often moves seamlessly from the visual realm into the deeply physical one, where the simple temperature of our skin can magically alter how we perceive the personalities of everyone around us. Imagine walking into a chilly, quiet room and wrapping your cold fingers around a thick, heavy ceramic mug filled with steaming, fragrant tea. The heat radiates immediately through your palms, travelling slowly up your arms and gently thawing any residual tension hiding in your shoulders. In the fascinating, deeply physical field of embodied cognition, Researchers have discovered that holding a warm object does not just raise our body temperature, it fundamentally, beautifully shifts our psychological judgment. When our hands are physically warm, we consistently and unconsciously rate the people around us as having warmer, more generous, and significantly more agreeable personalities. We're naturally more likely to trust a stranger, more prone to give someone the gentle benefit of the doubt, and more deeply attuned to feelings of shared connection. The human brain seamlessly, wonderfully, blurs the line between physical warmth and emotional warmth. You do not need to hold tightly to the events of the day anymore. You can simply let the body grow heavier, allowing the physical warmth of your own bed to melt away any lingering quiet tensions, knowing the mind is drifting perfectly, exactly as it should. As the mind softens into this deeply secure, heavy state, it often begins to drift backward, sorting quietly through the vast, dusty archives of your personal history. Imagine walking slowly down a long, warmly lit, endless hallway, lined with thousands of softly glowing framed photographs, each capturing a single, fleeting moment of your past. For those who possess a highly agreeable and emotionally stable personality, this mental gallery is curated with a remarkably beautiful, unconscious bias known to science as rosy retrospection. As time passes, the human brain naturally gently begins to fade the sharp, stressful edges of past difficulties, prioritizing and artificially brightening the memories of joy, connection, and quiet triumph. Highly agreeable people experience this fading of negative emotion much faster and far more profoundly than others. When they look back at a challenging journey or a complicated season of life, their minds effortlessly highlight the moments of shared laughter, the profound lessons learned, and the quiet moments of unexpected grace, leaving the darker, heavier shadows to simply fade away into the dust. It is a magnificent, highly protective feature of human character. Your memory is not a cold, objective recording device. It is a gentle, deeply compassionate storyteller, constantly rewriting your history to ensure your inner world remains a place of enduring, resilient light. The specific way we look back at the past is intimately intertwined with how we experience the steady, continuous flow of the present moment. Picture a wide, incredibly slow-moving river, its surface so perfectly smooth it looks like polished green glass, winding lazily through a sun-drenched, silent valley. For individuals who are highly agreeable, deeply empathetic, and entirely focused on the emotional presence of the people around them, time literally feels like this wide, unhurried river. Psychological experiments involving human time perception reveal that when we are deeply engaged in positive social connection, or when our personality naturally leans toward a patient, enduring empathy, our internal clock beautifully expands. The minutes feel thicker, richer, and completely unhurried. Conversely, highly driven, intensely conscientious individuals often experience time as a narrow, fast-moving mountain stream, perfectly compartmentalized into swift, efficient currents of forward momentum. Neither experience of time is wrong. They're simply different, exquisite ways the brain measures the weight of existence. As you sink deeper and deeper into this quiet rest, your mind is naturally adopting the slow, expansive perception of time. There is no rush here. The seconds are stretching out, becoming long, soft, and beautifully empty, offering you all the space you could possibly need to simply exist. If you were to follow that slow, expansive river all the way to its distant end, you would eventually find yourself standing at the edge of the vast, rhythmic, slowly breathing ocean, standing exactly where the shallow water meets the cool, wet sand, feeling the invisible mist on your face and listening to the endless, low, repetitive crash of the waves, brings us to a profound intersection of environment and personality known as the blue mind effect. Human beings possess a deeply ingrained, ancient biological connection to water, but this connection is experienced most powerfully, most healingly, by those whose personalities naturally carry a heavier burden of sensitivity or emotional turbulence. For minds that are beautifully complex but sometimes prone to overthinking or deep anxious rumination, physical proximity to a large open body of water acts as an instant, powerful neurological soothing agent. The incomprehensible vastness of the horizon, the rhythmic low-frequency white noise of the surf, and the calming uniform palette of the sea force the brain's overactive, tired networks to gently power down. The mind easily enters a mild, meditative state of soft, healing fascination. The heavy, tangled complexities of human life are temporarily, beautifully washed away by the sheer, simple, undeniable reality of the shifting tide. The water does not ask you to be anything other than a quiet, breathing observer, offering a profound, deep rest for the sensitive, watchful soul. And just like that ancient tide, your breath can settle into its own effortless, perfect rhythm, in and out, rising and falling. Nothing needs to be solved tonight. Moving slowly away from the sandy, wave-swept shore, and stepping into the lush emerald shade of a dense, damp coastal forest reveals another quiet, living sanctuary, beautifully tailored to a completely different facet of our nature. Imagine kneeling on the soft, dark, fragrant earth, carefully and quietly tending to the delicate, shallow roots of a small, bright green fern. The simple, timeless act of gardening, of patiently nurturing plant life, interfaces perfectly with the personality trait of conscientiousness. People who naturally seek order, quiet responsibility, and steady, measurable progress find a deep, profound sense of psychological peace in the reliable, slow rhythms of the natural botanical world. Plants do not offer the chaotic, unpredictable, heavy emotional feedback of human relationships. They respond silently, honestly, and predictably to the precise care and light they are given. For a highly conscientious, structured mind, watering a fern or meticulously pruning a small ancient bonsai tree is a perfect tactile manifestation of their inner drive for harmony. The damp soil absorbs their focused, busy attention, and the slow, deliberate, microscopic unfurling of a new green leaf provides a quiet, deeply satisfying reward. It is a beautiful, silent partnership between the organized human mind and the slow, perfect geometry of nature, proving that our internal need for order can be an act of profound, life-giving love. As you look up from the damp, fragrant earth of the forest floor, letting your relaxed gaze wander high into the swaying canopy above, the dappled sunlight filtering down through the shifting leaves might suddenly, briefly, look exactly like a sleeping, smiling face. This incredibly common, deeply human, and perfectly harmless experience is called pareidolia, the mind's innate automatic tendency to find meaningful patterns, shapes, and faces in completely random chaotic stimuli, like the rough bark of a tree, the soft shadows on a bedroom wall, or the slow, majestic drift of passing clouds. While everyone experiences this quiet illusion from time to time, researchers have found that individuals with exceptionally high levels of openness and natural creativity experience pareidolia far more frequently and in much richer, more complex detail. Their neural networks are densely, beautifully interconnected, constantly, playfully searching for hidden meanings and drawing brilliant invisible lines between completely unrelated visual concepts. When a highly open mind looks at a crumpled blanket in the dark, it doesn't just see empty fabric, it sees a sleeping mountain range or the noble profile of a quiet, protective guardian. It is a wonderful sign of a brain that gently refuses to see the world as dull, empty, or devoid of magic. Your mind is a magnificent creative engine, forever trying to populate the dark with familiar, comforting shapes, transforming the random chaos of the universe into a quiet, deeply personal gallery of art. The specific, unique way we interpret the random shapes of the world eventually gracefully influences how we choose to move our physical bodies through it. Imagine standing exactly at the centre of a vast, complex, beautifully manicured hedge maze, the gravel paths diverging in countless mysterious green directions. The internal strategy you use to find your way out is a surprisingly accurate, deeply revealing mirror of your core personality. Cognitive mapping studies show that highly conscientious, inherently rule-oriented individuals navigate by heavily relying on specific, fixed landmarks and strict, step-by-step memorized routes. They find deep psychological comfort in the predictable logical sequence. Turn left at the old oak tree, walk straight past the weathered stone bench. However, individuals who score high in openness and extroversion tend to navigate using abstract cardinal directions and a broader, more fluid mental map of the entire geographical area. They're far more likely to wander off the known, beaten path, trusting their internal compass and their innate, joyful desire for exploration to eventually safely guide them back home. Neither method of moving through the world is superior. One provides the profound, deep comfort of absolute certainty, while the other offers the quiet, steady thrill of continuous discovery. The very way your feet find their way home is a beautiful physical expression of how your spirit chooses to live. When you finally arrive at that safe, quiet home, the simple sound of your own voice greeting the empty waiting rooms is the final, perfect acoustic signature of your character. Imagine the deep, resonant, impossibly smooth sound of a heavy wooden cello, compared to the bright, rapid, shifting, airy melody of a silver flute. The physical acoustics of human speech, the specific pitch, the varying rhythm, the subtle changes in volume, are known collectively as prosody, and they are intimately, biologically tied to the architecture of our personality. Extroverted individuals unconsciously weave a complex, highly varied melody into their daily speech. They use wider, sweeping fluctuations in pitch and speak at a slightly faster, more dynamic, energetic tempo, literally singing their internal enthusiasm and social warmth outward into the air. Introverted individuals seeking naturally to conserve their precious internal energy and minimize external disruption often speak in a narrower, beautifully calm and steady vocal register. Their voices are the acoustic equivalent of a still, deep, undisturbed mountain lake, projecting a profound, soothing and incredibly reliable presence. Every single time you speak, you're not merely transmitting cold information. You're gently playing the unique biological instrument of your personality, filling the empty air with a specific, beautiful, invisible frequency of your own soul. And as that unique, beautiful frequency softens now, settling slowly into the deep, quiet, rhythmic breathing of the late night, we can begin to look even deeper into the invisible forces that shape us, moving beyond the sounds we make in the air and drifting softly into the quiet, powerful ways our bodies adapt to the mysterious, turning passage of the seasons. The passage of those seasons, the slow, majestic tilt of the earth toward and away from the sun, leaves a quiet, indelible mark on our character from the very moment we take our first breath. Imagine a world painted in the blinding, pristine white of deep winter, slowly melting into the vibrant, fragrant explosion of early spring, and then baking into the golden, lazy heat of a high summer afternoon. The ambient light and temperature of the exact season in which you were born quietly interacts with your developing nervous system, setting a subtle, biological baseline for your lifelong temperament. Neurobiologists examining the deep chemistry of the human brain have discovered that those born in the bright, long days of summer often carry a slightly more rapid, dynamic emotional tempo, their moods shifting with the sudden, brilliant energy of a summer storm. Conversely, those born in the quiet, shadowed, insulated months of winter tend to develop a profound, enduring emotional steadiness, naturally resistant to sudden irritation or turbulence. It is as if the newborn mind looks around, takes a gentle measure of the light in the air, and beautifully calibrates its own internal weather to match the rhythm of the world it has just entered. We are, at our very core, quiet children of the turning year. As the grand macro-rhythm of the seasons shapes our deep foundation, the micro-rhythm of a single day acts as a gentle, shifting tide for our internal sense of morality and fairness. Picture the sharp, elongated shadow of an ancient stone sundial, slowly contracting as the morning sun climbs toward noon. The psychological phenomenon known as the morning morality effect reveals that our capacity for honesty, patience, and ethical behaviour is not a fixed, rigid monument, but a fluid resource deeply tied to our biological energy. People who naturally wake with the dawn, the morning larks, exhibit their highest, most flawless levels of integrity and gentle patience in the early sunlit hours. When the evening arrives and their energy wanes, their rigid boundaries naturally softly blur. The opposite is wonderfully true for night owls, who find their most authentic, principled, and patient selves in the quiet, solitary hours of the dark. It is a deeply forgiving, beautiful realization. The moments when we are less than perfect are often not failures of character, but simply the natural ebbing of our biological tide. You do not need to hold yourself to an impossible, unchanging standard. Here, in the quiet of the night, the body rests beautifully without effort, and you are allowed to simply let go of the day's heavy demands. When the light of that day finally fades entirely, human beings have, for hundreds of thousands of years, gathered around a different kind of illumination, one that fundamentally alters the chemistry of the mind. Visualize a small, warm, crackling campfire in the center of a vast, dark forest, the orange embers pulsing like a slow, sleeping heartbeat, casting dancing, golden shadows against the silhouettes of tall pines. Sitting quietly and watching the hypnotic, rhythmic flicker of an open flame triggers a profound, ancient relaxation response deep within the human nervous system. Evolutionary psychologists have measured this effect, noting that simply gazing into a fire significantly lowers blood pressure and actively shifts the personality toward a state of prosocial openness. The hard, protective shell we wear during the daylight hours naturally melts away in the warmth of the hearth. Fire was our first safe harbour, our first shared theatre, and our first communal sanctuary. Our brains are beautifully genetically coded to understand that when the fire is lit, the immediate danger is past. We can soften our shoulders, share our food, and whisper our stories. The glowing embers speak a silent, ancestral language of total, uncompromising safety. The gentle, expressive ways we communicate around that fire eventually evolved into the intricate, silent dance of written language, where the very movement of our hands across a page leaves a physical map of our social desires. Imagine dipping a heavy brass fountain pen into a well of midnight blue ink, watching the smooth, dark liquid flow onto a thick, textured piece of cotton paper. In the delicate, quiet study of handwriting, the physical spaces we leave between our words and letters are a brilliant, unconscious reflection of our internal need for connection. Individuals carrying a deeply extroverted, highly agreeable personality tend to naturally compress their writing, the letters leaning affectionately into one another, the words tightly packed like close friends huddled in a warm room. They unconsciously seek to eliminate the empty space, drawing concepts and people closer together. Those with highly introverted, independent, or fiercely analytical traits will effortlessly leave wide, generous breathing margins between their words. They are painting their psychological need for personal space directly onto the parchment, demanding a quiet perimeter of peace around their thoughts. Your mind is constantly, beautifully spilling its invisible architecture onto the physical world, stroke by stroke. That deep internal need for space or closeness eventually scales up from the tiny microscopic gaps between letters to the colossal, sprawling architecture of the places we choose to live. Hover in your mind's eye high above a massive glowing metropolis at twilight, the grid of streets forming rivers of red and white light, the glass skyscrapers reflecting the fading purple sky. The sheer size and density of a city act as a massive environmental kiln, slowly altering the resting personality traits of millions of inhabitants over time. Psychologists studying the geographical distribution of human character have found that residing in a heavily populated, hyperdense urban environment steadily increases a person's openness to new experiences simply through the unavoidable daily friction with countless different cultures, ideas, and sensory inputs. Yet, simultaneously, the constant heavy demand on the nervous system often necessitates a slight protective lowering of baseline agreeableness. The mind builds a necessary, quiet, invisible shield to filter out the overwhelming noise of the crowd. We are beautifully porous creatures, absorbing the concrete, the glass, and the specific pace of life that surrounds us, gently adjusting our psychological armour to survive and thrive in the specific ecosystem we call home. The walls of your own room right now are the perfect quiet shelter, asking absolutely nothing of you, allowing your breathing to slow to a perfect restful cadence. Sometimes the most perfect shelter is not made of wood or stone, but woven entirely out of falling water. Picture a cool grey afternoon, sitting in a dim, comfortable room with a cup of warm tea, watching thick, heavy drops of rain trace slow, erratic, mesmerising paths down a cold window pane. For a specific subset of the population, often known as pluviophiles, this weather does not bring melancholy. It brings an immediate, profound, and deeply measurable psychological relief. These individuals often share a beautifully sensitive, highly introverted personality profile. The steady, broad-spectrum white noise of a heavy rainstorm acts as a massive acoustic blanket, temporarily muting the chaotic, unpredictable demands of the outside world. It is nature's own quiet permission, slip to retreat, to cancel obligations, and to turn inward without guilt. The rain washes away the bright, high-pressure expectations of a sunny day, replacing them with a dark, soft, enveloping cocoon. If you love the rain, it is simply your brain's deep, intuitive recognition that the atmosphere has finally perfectly matched the quiet, reflective, unhurried tempo of your own inner world. The deep comfort we find in the weather is powerfully mirrored in the vast, unchanging topography of the earth itself, revealing that our souls possess a deeply rooted geographical preference. Imagine standing in the centre of a lush, ancient emerald green valley, entirely surrounded by towering, jagged mountain peaks that pierce a low, misty cloud cover. Now contrast that with standing on a perfectly flat, endless expanse of white sand beach, the horizon stretching away in a massive, unbroken 360-degree dome of blue sky. The topographical personality hypothesis reveals a stunning, silent alignment between the shape of the land and the shape of the mind. Highly extroverted personalities effortlessly gravitate toward the flat, open expanses of beaches and plains, environments that biologically encourage movement, visibility, broad social gathering, and outward expansion. Introverts, however, naturally seek the protective, enclosed, and highly textured environments of mountainous or heavily wooded regions. The mountains offer a physical, geological sanctuary, breaking up the wind and the sight lines, providing countless quiet, hidden spaces for solitary reflection. We do not just live on the earth, we actively seek out the specific landscapes that beautifully physically hold the shape of our spirit. When we attempt to capture the breathtaking beauty of those landscapes, the simple act of pointing a camera reveals another quiet, mechanical window into our psychology. Look down through the cool glass viewfinder of a heavy vintage silver camera. Do you turn the lens wide, attempting to capture the entire sweeping valley, the massive sky, and the distant rolling storm clouds all at once? Or do you zoom in incredibly close, focusing entirely on the intricate geometric veins of a single dew-covered leaf hanging from a branch? Studies exploring the intersection of visual art and personality show that individuals who score highest in the trait of openness, those who crave novelty, abstract ideas, and the grand, interconnected nature of the universe, consistently frame their photographs using wide, expansive, sweeping angles. They want the whole context. Conversely, those who are deeply conscientious, detail-oriented and highly grounded in the present moment often prefer the macro lens, finding deep, profound beauty in the exact, sharp, focused isolation of a single, perfect subject. Your eyes do not just passively receive light, they actively, wonderfully filter the universe through the exact lens of your character, capturing the world precisely as your mind prefers to understand it. Your muscles can soften now, the tension releasing entirely from the jaw and the neck as you zoom out from the specific details of the day and let the wide, dark canvas of the night take over. The way we consume the world extends from the visual to the deeply, physically visceral, taking root in the very taste buds on our tongue. Imagine the delicate, crisp shattering of a caramelized sugar crust on a warm pastry, followed by a rush of rich, comforting, buttery sweetness. The language we use to describe kind, highly agreeable people, calling them sweet, is not merely a poetic coincidence or a linguistic accident. It is an embodied biological metaphor. Psychological researchers have discovered a robust, fascinating link between a strong physical preference for sweet-tasting foods and a highly agreeable, intensely pro-social personality. Individuals who actively seek out the flavour of sweetness are measurably more likely to volunteer their time to help a stranger in need and to prioritise harmony in their relationships. It is as if the physical sensation of sweetness on the tongue serves as a continuous, quiet primer for warmth and generosity in the heart. The brain inextricably links the comforting evolutionary reward of sugar with the profound, life-giving reward of human connection, mapping the kindness of our character directly onto our palate. Yet there are moments when all the sweetness and connection in the world cannot quite settle a deeply exhausted, wonderfully complex mind, and the body requires a much more primal physical intervention to find peace. Picture the sensation of a thick, exceptionally heavy quilted blanket being gently, slowly draped over your tired shoulders, the weight settling evenly across your chest and your legs. This is the profound magic of deep pressure stimulation. For personalities that naturally lean toward high sensitivity, careful vigilance, or occasional waves of quiet anxiety, this added physical gravity is a miraculous instant neurological balm. The even, dispersed weight mimics the deep ancestral sensation of being held safely, immediately signalling the brain to halt the production of the stress hormone cortisol. It actively, forcefully engages the parasympathetic nervous system, shifting the body from a state of quiet alert into a state of profound, undeniable rest. The simple, physical weight of the blanket paradoxically lifts the invisible, heavy weight of the world from the mind. It is a beautiful reminder that sometimes we do not need to think our way to peace. We simply need to let gravity hold us securely to the earth. And as you lie there, held safely by that very gravity, floating securely on the surface of the turning world, we can drift further out, exploring the strange, beautiful ways our minds are tethered to the unseen forces of the wider universe, waiting patiently in the dark. Waiting patiently in that velvety dark, the mind begins to perceive the invisible tethers that link our physical selves to the ancient rhythmic pulse of the cosmos. Imagine standing on a quiet, frost-covered hill at midnight, looking up as the colossal silver wheel of the Milky Way turns with a slow, silent majesty that has remained unchanged for eons. While we often think of our personality as a strictly earthly creation, psychologists have long noted a fascinating phenomenon where the vast rhythmic cycles of the moon and the stars serve as profound anchors for the human psyche. For those who possess a high degree of openness and a deeply spiritual or reflective temperament, these celestial patterns provide a sense of cosmic continuity. It is the comforting realization that our small individual lives are woven into a much grander, exquisitely organized tapestry. The brain, seeking order amidst the chaos of daily existence, finds a deep neurological peace in the predictable movements of the heavens. This connection reveals that the human character is not an isolated island, but a vibrant, breathing participant in the universe's long, quiet story. As you lie here, you can feel the weight of your own body being gently held by the same gravity that guides the planets, allowing the mind to simply drift into that vast, supportive embrace. That sense of vast, supportive embrace is often most clearly felt when we look into the soulful, unblinking eyes of the animals who have walked beside us for millennia. Imagine a warm, golden afternoon in a wide-open paddock, where a large, powerful horse stands perfectly still, its coat shimmering like polished mahogany in the sun. If you were to step forward and place your hand gently against its neck, you might feel the slow, steady rhythm of its heart. Science has uncovered a beautiful, almost mystical form of emotional resonance between humans and horses. When a person with a highly empathetic and calm personality interacts with these sensitive creatures, their heart rates often begin to synchronize, falling into a shared rhythmic lullaby. Horses are masters of mirroring human emotion. They do not listen to our words, but to the quiet internal frequency of our nervous systems. For a deeply sensitive soul, this interaction provides a profound form of silent validation. It is a reminder that our inner peace is a tangible force, capable of being felt and shared by another living being without a single syllable being uttered. The horse becomes a living, breathing extension of your own tranquility, a massive, gentle mirror reflecting the quiet strength of your character. This quiet strength often finds its most vibrant expression through the delicate, rhythmic movement of the human hand, translating the abstract energy of the soul into physical form. Picture a silent, sun-drenched studio where an artist is slowly, meticulously grinding raw, earth-toned pigments into a smooth, buttery oil paint. The very way a person chooses to apply colour to a canvas, the pressure of the brush, the length of the stroke, the preference for sharp edges or soft bleeding gradients, is a profound, non-verbal autobiography. Research into the psychology of art has demonstrated that individuals with high levels of conscientiousness naturally gravitate toward controlled beauty, favouring precise, representational forms where every detail is accounted for with loving care. In contrast, those with high openness to experience often find their deepest peace in gestural abstraction, where the paint is allowed to flow, drip, and merge in unpredictable, organic ways. The canvas acts as a safe, silent container for the complexities of the personality, allowing the mind to untangle its thoughts through the simple, repetitive motion of the wrist. You can imagine the feeling of a soft brush gliding across a smooth surface now, the mind following the movement until the breath settles into a long, effortless cadence. As the breath settles, you might find yourself drifting toward the memories of the objects you have chosen to keep near you throughout your life. Imagine a small wooden shelf in a quiet corner of your home, holding a collection of smoothed river stones, an old brass key, and a delicate dried wildflower pressed between the pages of a favourite book. These are what psychologists call identity claims, physical markers that we place in our environment to remind us of who we are and where we've been. For a person who values stability and tradition, these objects serve as vital, grounding anchors, tethering the self to a rich personal history. For the adventurous spirit, they are trophies of exploration, whispers of distant horizons and past braveries. We do not just inhabit rooms, we curate them to act as external mirrors of our internal state. The simple presence of a familiar, beloved object in the dark can lower the heart rate and signal to the brain that it is safe to descend into the deep, restorative layers of sleep. Nothing needs to be held too tightly. The objects of your life are standing guard, holding the story of you so that you can finally let go. The story of you is also told in the silent, exquisite language of the face, even when it is resting in the absolute stillness of sleep. Imagine a sculptor's hands gently working with cool grey clay, defining the subtle, minute lines around the eyes and the soft, expressive curve of the mouth. While we often think of our facial features as a matter of pure genetics, our personality traits over many decades actually begin to carve our faces into a permanent visible map of our character. This is known as the dormant expression effect. A person who has spent a lifetime cultivating a personality of deep agreeableness and habitual kindness will slowly develop subtle, permanent muscular patterns that project a sense of warmth and trustworthiness even when their face is perfectly neutral. Conversely, a life of intense driving conscientiousness and focused determination leaves behind a landscape of focused, resolute lines. We literally wear our souls on our skin. As you relax every tiny muscle in your face right now, from the forehead to the jaw, you are smoothing out the map of the day, allowing the true, peaceful essence of your character to shine through in the dark. This internal essence is supported by a magnificent internal clockwork that operates with a precision far beyond any man-made timepiece. Imagine a vast golden hall filled with thousands of delicate ticking pendulums, all swinging in perfect silent unison. This is the realm of your circadian rhythm, the internal biological master clock that governs every cell in your body. But there is a hidden, psychological dimension to this rhythm. Psychologists have found that social zeitgebers, the regular rhythmic interactions we have with the people we love, are just as important as sunlight in keeping our personalities stable and balanced. For someone with a highly social, extroverted nature, the simple act of a morning greeting or a shared evening meal acts as a powerful entrainment signal, locking their internal clock into a state of vibrant, healthy harmony. Our characters are not just built from within, they are sustained by the rhythmic, predictable touch of the world around us. Even now, in the silence, your body is remembering the rhythms of those you love, using that sense of connection to pace your heart for a night of deep, undisturbed repair. Sometimes the most profound connections are found in the things we cannot see, but only feel as a shift in the very air around us. Imagine standing in a high mountain meadow just as a summer thunderstorm begins to roll in. The air suddenly turns cool, smelling of ozone and wet stone, and you feel a strange electric tingle on your skin as the atmospheric pressure begins to drop. For individuals with a sensory processing sensitive personality, these subtle shifts in the barometric pressure are not just weather events, they are deeply felt internal shifts. Their nervous systems are like finely tuned Golian harps, vibrating in response to the slightest movement of the world's hidden energy. This sensitivity, while sometimes overwhelming in the bright noise of the day, becomes a magnificent gift in the quiet of the night. It allows the mind to perceive the profound, silent beauty of the world's transitions. You can feel the air in your own room right now, the coolness against your cheek, the stillness of the space, letting that sensitivity guide you toward a state of soft, expansive awareness, where the boundary between you and the quiet world begins to beautifully blur. That blurred boundary is a hallmark of the most profound states of human creativity, where the self seems to dissolve into the work at hand. Imagine a weaver sitting at a large wooden loom, their fingers moving with a lightning-fast, unconscious grace, the shuttle flying back and forth as a complex, colourful tapestry grows inch by inch. This is the state of flow, a psychological phenomenon where personality and action become one. Research into flow has shown that people with a high autotelic personality, those who find intrinsic rewards in the activity itself rather than the end result, experience these moments of timelessness more frequently. In flow, the ego disappears, the sense of time vanishes, and the mind enters a state of high-functioning peace. It is the ultimate expression of a personality in harmony with its purpose. You do not need to be at a loom to feel this now. The simple, rhythmic act of breathing is its own form of flow. Each inhale and exhale is a thread being woven into the fabric of your rest, a continuous, effortless process that requires no thought, only surrender. The surrender to the rhythm of life is often captured in the way we perceive the passing of the hours. Imagine an old, weathered hourglass sitting on a sunlit windowsill, the fine white sand falling in a continuous silent thread. To a person with a future-oriented personality, that falling sand is a call to action, a reminder of the goals and dreams waiting to be built. But to those who possess a present fatalistic or hedonistic temperament, the sand is simply a beautiful falling mist, a reminder to savour the texture of the now. Psychologists have found that our time perspective is one of the most stable and defining pillars of our character. It dictates how we save, how we play, and how we remember. Yet, the most resilient and peaceful personalities are those who can time shift, individuals who can plan for the future with the sun, but who can also sit in the total golden stillness of the present when the moon rises. Tonight, the hourglass is turned on its side. The sand is still. There is no future to plan for and no past to recount. There is only the soft, heavy, and infinitely deep now of your own relaxation. As you settle into that stillness, you might feel a sudden, quiet flash of déjà vu, that strange, fleeting sensation that you have stood in this exact place, or felt this exact peace, once before in a distant, forgotten time. Far from being a mere trick of the memory, researchers have suggested that the frequency with which we experience these glitches in time is linked to our levels of openness and our brain's capacity for rapid, lateral associations. For a creative, open mind, the brain is constantly, playfully cross-referencing the present with a vast internal library of dreams, stories, and images. Déjà vu is a sign of a mind that is vibrantly alive, a personality that is deeply interconnected with the many layers of its own experience. It is a gentle reminder that you are a creature of many chapters, many dreams, and many rooms. The peace you feel now is not new. It is a homecoming. It is a return to a state of grace that your soul has known many times before and will know many times again. The homecoming of sleep is the final, most beautiful transition of the day, where the individual self gently dissolves into the collective ancient sea of the unconscious. In this space, the traits that define you in the light, your boldness, your caution, your wit, and your warmth, all soften into a single glowing ember of pure existence. We can begin to look even closer at the magnificent microscopic foundations of this peace, drifting into the silent world of the cells, where the instructions for your very character are written in a language of light and chemical memory, waiting to be read by the quiet stars of the night. If you were to zoom in, past the steady rhythm of your breathing, past the slow circulation of your blood, and deep into the silent microscopic sanctuary of a single cell, you would find a magnificent spiraling ladder of light. This is your DNA, the ancient biological library of your existence. For a long time we believed this library was locked, its books printed in permanent ink. But modern science has uncovered a profoundly beautiful, fluid layer of reality known as epigenetics. The life experiences of our ancestors, their long periods of profound peace, their quiet resilience, the foods they gathered, and the climates they endured, leave tiny, invisible chemical tags on this spiraling ladder. These tags do not change the genetic letters. Rather, they act like soft velvet bookmarks, gently instructing the cell on which chapters of our character to read aloud and which to keep quietly closed. It means that the deep foundational predispositions of your personality, your natural inclination toward calm, your inherent hardiness, or your sensitivity to the world are part of a long, unbroken chain of human experience. You're not starting from scratch. You're the living, breathing continuation of a massive ancestral survival story, carrying the quiet, biological wisdom of generations safely within the architecture of your own cells. From that microscopic spiraling ladder, the biological instructions ripple outward, eventually finding their voice in the deep, resonant, continuous drumbeat in the center of your chest. Imagine a heavy brass metronome ticking with rigid, flawless, mathematical perfection. While this absolute precision might seem ideal, the healthy human heart does not desire to be a machine. It thrives on a beautiful, subtle flexibility. This phenomenon, known as heart rate variability, measures the microscopic shifting fractions of a second between each beat. Psychologists and cardiologists have discovered that a highly variable, flexible heart rhythm is strongly, beautifully correlated with a highly agreeable, emotionally stable and resilient personality. An adaptable heart is the physical engine of a peaceful mind. It means your nervous system is constantly, gracefully dancing with the present moment, perfectly adjusting its tempo to match the subtle, shifting energies of your environment. It does not rigidly resist the world, it flows with it. And right now, as you rest in the deep, undisturbed quiet of this room, your own heart is beating with that same ancient, flexible wisdom, slowly lengthening the space between each pulse, gently guiding your body into a state of total, heavy relaxation. That internal rhythm naturally seeks out the rhythms of others, creating invisible bridges of connection across empty space. Picture a perfectly still silver pond hidden deep in a silent forest. If a single autumn leaf falls upon its surface, the water instantly perfectly mirrors the sky above and the trees around it. Deep within the human brain, there exists a network of cells that perform this exact beautiful kind of reflection. They are called mirror neurons. When you watch another person perform a gentle act, or witness a sudden flash of joy across their face, these specific neurons light up in your own mind exactly as if you were experiencing that joy yourself. For individuals who possess a naturally high degree of empathy and openness, this mirror system is remarkably sensitive and vibrant. Empathy is not just a philosophical concept or a learned social courtesy. It is a profound, hardwired biological reality. We are physically constructed to feel the echoes of another's spirit. We are not solitary islands in the dark. We are connected by a vast, luminous web of shared neurological experience, quietly reflecting the light of everyone we meet. When we trace that luminous web across the entire vast expanse of the globe, moving from the freezing, windswept plains of the Arctic to the dense, humid emerald canopies of the equator, we discover a stunning, quiet unity in the human condition. Imagine a massive, endlessly complex tapestry woven from billions of unique, colourful threads. Despite the staggering diversity of human cultures, languages and traditions, psychologists travelling to the furthest corners of the earth have consistently found the exact same 5 structural pillars of personality everywhere they look. The fundamental traits of openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism act as a universal, invisible scaffolding for the human soul. Whether a person spends their life navigating the chaotic, neon-lit streets of a sprawling metropolis or living in a quiet, isolated village high in the silent mountains, their character is built from these same 5 ancient fundamental elements. It is a deeply comforting realization. No matter how far you travel or how different the world may seem, the internal architecture of the people you meet is built upon the very same foundation as your own. We are infinitely beautifully varied yet shaped from the exact same shared clay. Sometimes the connection to that shared human experience and to our own deeply buried past is triggered by nothing more than a sudden, invisible shift in the air. Imagine stepping out onto an old wooden porch just as a heavy summer rain begins to fall on the dry, sun-baked earth, releasing that rich, unmistakable, earthy scent known as petrichor. Of all the human senses, the sense of smell is the only one that completely bypasses the brain's analytical filtering center, traveling directly to the ancient emotional and memory-making regions of the amygdala and the hippocampus. For personalities that lean heavily toward high sensitivity, deep reflection, and introversion, these olfactory pathways are incredibly rich and deeply woven. A single, fleeting waft of old paper, burning cedar, or the specific salt air tang of a distant ocean can instantly, magically transport them decades backward in time. They do not just remember their past, they vividly, emotionally re-experience it through the quiet magic of scent. Your mind is a vast, invisible library of aromas, each one holding a perfectly preserved chapter of your life, waiting quietly in the dark to remind you of the beautiful, intricate journey you have taken to arrive exactly where you are today. That beautiful, intricate journey is physically recorded in the very pathways that carry your thoughts. Picture a vast, sprawling city at midnight, seen from high above, the complex network of highways glowing with streams of white, continuous light. Inside the human brain, these highways are made of white matter, the deeply insulated conductive cables that connect the different processing regions of the mind. Neuroscientists have discovered that our natural biological preference for the morning sun, or the midnight stars, our sleep chronotype, is physically reflected in the structural integrity of these glowing pathways. The white matter architecture in the brain of a natural night owl is subtly, distinctly different from that of a morning lark. The paths are routed differently, distributing energy and attention according to a completely unique biological schedule. Your preference for the quiet, shadowed hours of the night is not a simple habit. It is deeply embedded in the physical, structural map of your mind. There is a profound, silent logic to the way your brain seeks the dark, a neurological permission slip to finally power down the bright lights of the day and let the quiet, insulating pathways of the night take over. You can let the body grow entirely heavy now. The breath settles. The mind can simply drift, trusting the natural biological architecture of its own rest. As the mind drifts, the muscles of the face finally surrender the subtle tensions they have held all day, allowing the true foundational expressions of our character to rest. Imagine looking at an old, beautifully preserved black and white photograph of a face caught in a moment of sudden, absolute, undeniable joy. The corners of the mouth turn up naturally, but the true signature of this emotion is found in the soft, delicate crinkling of the skin around the outer corners of the eyes. This specific involuntary movement is known as the Duchenne smile, and it is the universal biological marker of authentic, deep-seated positive emotion. In a famous, decades-long psychological study examining the lives of nuns, researchers made a profound, startling discovery. The women who consistently exhibited this genuine, deep-reaching Duchenne smile in their early youthful portraits lived significantly longer, healthier, and more peaceful lives than those who offered only polite manufactured smiles. A personality rooted in authentic, unforced optimism acts as a lifelong biological shield. True, quiet joy physically protects the heart, lowers the systemic inflammation of the body, and weaves a tapestry of enduring health. The kindness and warmth you naturally carry within you is not just a gift to the world. It is a profound, protective medicine for your own soul. Yet the soul is not required to be perpetually happy in order to be beautiful. It is the nature of the turning world to bring heavy storms, to challenge our foundations, and sometimes to gently break us apart. Imagine the ancient, meticulous Japanese art of kintsugi, where a shattered porcelain bowl is slowly, lovingly repaired, the broken seams fused together with pure, gleaming liquid gold. The bowl is not discarded. It becomes infinitely more beautiful, more valuable, and more profound because of its fractured history. In the landscape of human personality, this exact process is recognized as post-traumatic growth. When an individual navigates through a season of deep adversity, the extreme pressure does not simply return them to their original state. Instead, it often catalyzes a magnificent, permanent expansion of their character. People who have traversed the dark forests of hardship consistently emerge with significantly higher levels of openness to experience, a drastically deepened capacity for profound empathy, and an unshakable, quiet appreciation for the simple, breathing moments of daily life, the struggle itself becomes the gold that holds the new, wiser personality together. You do not need to hide the cracks in your history. They are the exact places where the light of your character shines through the brightest, a testament to your quiet, enduring strength. This quiet, enduring strength often requires empty space to truly stretch its limbs. Picture a vast, completely empty sunlit room with polished wooden floors and bare white walls. For many, this total lack of external stimulation feels like a heavy, uncomfortable blanket. But for individuals who possess a highly open, deeply creative personality, boredom is not a punishment. It is a magnificent blank canvas. When the environment goes completely quiet and there is absolutely nothing demanding their attention, the brain does not simply shut down. It initiates a spectacular psychological process known as divergent thinking. In the absence of external noise, the mind begins to entertain itself, playfully drawing invisible, brilliant connections between completely unrelated concepts, spinning intricate golden webs of imagination out of thin air. The quietest, most unremarkable moments of the day become the fertile soil from which the most profound, original ideas are born. There is nothing you need to do right now. There is nothing you need to solve, and nothing you must entertain. This vast, silent quiet of the night is your canvas. You're free to simply float in the emptiness, allowing the mind to rest in its own beautiful, unstructured potential. Floating in that vast, unstructured potential, the boundaries of who we think we are begin to beautifully, softly blur. Imagine floating on your back in the center of a warm, perfectly calm ocean at midnight, the black water blending seamlessly into the starry sky above until you can no longer tell where the sea ends and the heavens begin. In the deepest, most evolved stages of human personality development, psychologists describe a state of being known as the quiet ego. This is not a diminished self, nor a loss of identity. Rather, it is an ego whose internal volume has been gently, permanently turned down. When the loud, defensive demands of the ego are hushed, a profound, unshakable wisdom takes its place. The individual no longer feels the exhausting need to prove their worth, to defend their pride, or to separate themselves from the world. They recognize that they are simply one drop of water in a vast, interconnected, breathing ocean. The quiet ego brings a profound sense of humility, an effortless compassion for others, and a deep, enduring peace that cannot be shaken by the trivial storms of the day. As you lie here, wrapped in the safety of the dark, that quiet ego can take the helm, gently lowering the volume on all the thoughts, all the worries, and all the defining edges of the waking world, allowing you to melt perfectly and seamlessly into the slow, ancient, heavy rhythm of the sleeping earth. That slow, ancient, heavy rhythm of the sleeping earth is not just an abstract poetic idea, it is a physical cadence that we unconsciously invite into our bodies when we move through the world alongside the people we cherish. Imagine walking down a long, quiet, snow-covered path at twilight, with a close companion, the only sound the soft, muffled crunch of your boots against the fresh powder. If you were to look down, you would likely notice a beautiful, silent phenomenon. Your footsteps have perfectly synchronized. This physical mirroring of our walking gait is deeply intertwined with the personality trait of empathy and the neurological capacity for social bonding. Researchers have observed that individuals who possess a highly agreeable and deeply empathetic nature naturally, automatically adjust their physical stride to match the rhythm of the person beside them, down to the very fraction of a second. This is not a conscious decision. It is the nervous system's profound, wordless way of declaring solidarity. By aligning our physical momentum with another human being, the brain gently dissolves the boundary between the self and the other, translating the abstract concept of emotional closeness into the beautiful rhythmic shared poetry of motion. When those synchronized steps finally come to rest, and we sit down across from one another in a warmly lit, quiet room, that invisible tether of empathy continues to shape the very posture of our bodies. Picture sitting in a comfortable velvet chair, drinking a warm cup of chamomile tea, listening intently as a friend shares a deeply personal story. Without ever realizing it, you might naturally cross your legs in the exact same direction as theirs, or lean your chin against your hand just a moment after they do. Psychologists refer to this as the chameleon effect, an unconscious, elegant choreography of postural mirroring. Much like the synchronization of our footsteps, this physical echoing is a profound biological marker of a highly agreeable, peace-seeking personality. People who are naturally wired to foster harmony and avoid conflict possess an incredibly sensitive mirror neuron network that constantly reads and replicates the physical states of those around them. We mimic the angles of their shoulders and the tilt of their heads because our brains intuitively understand that shared physical geometry creates an atmosphere of profound psychological safety. It is a silent, beautiful reassurance, spoken entirely through the quiet geometry of the human form. If you were to look up from the tilt of those shoulders and gaze directly into their eyes, you would find another surprisingly rapid rhythm betraying the deep architecture of their mind. Imagine the soft, incredibly swift flutter of a moth's wings against a window pane. This is the speed at which our eyelids naturally sweep across our vision, a necessary mechanism to keep the eye hydrated, but one that is secretly governed by the brain's internal reward system. The baseline rate at which a person blinks in a calm, resting state is powerfully linked to the neurotransmitter dopamine, the chemical messenger responsible for our sense of drive and anticipation. Because highly extroverted personalities possess a naturally elevated sensitivity to dopamine, making them constantly eager to seek out new social rewards and vibrant interactions, their eyes physically blink at a slightly faster, more dynamic frequency than those of deep introverts. Their nervous systems are perpetually humming with a bright, forward-leaning energy, practically vibrating with the subconscious desire to engage with the unfolding world. But here, in the vast and quiet sanctuary of the night, there are no external rewards to seek. The eyes do not need to hunt for connection. The eyelids can simply grow heavy, fluttering to a slow, gentle halt, drawing a soft velvet curtain over the vibrant demands of the waking day. Behind that velvet curtain, the mind shifts its focus from the visual world to the rich, encompassing landscape of sound, revealing why some personalities find perfect peace in silence, while others seek the comforting roar of the crowd. Picture standing in the centre of a bustling, incredibly crowded, softly lit restaurant, the air thick with overlapping conversations, the clinking of silverware, and the low thrum of background music. For a highly extroverted mind, this auditory environment is a warm, energizing bath. But for an introverted personality, whose reticular activating system is naturally permanently set to a highly sensitive baseline, this same room is an overwhelming symphony of unfilterable data. Introverts do not inherently dislike social interaction. Rather, their auditory cortex is simply too magnificent, too exquisitely tuned. They physically process background noise, overlapping frequencies, and the subtle emotional tones of distant voices with far greater intensity and detail. The brain is working incredibly hard to listen to absolutely everything all at once. It is this beautiful, exhausting, acoustic sensitivity that eventually drives the quiet soul to seek out the deep, undisturbed silence of a solitary room where the mind can finally lay down its heavy, intricate listening tools and rest. When that quiet room is finally found, the body often expresses its profound relief through a specific, ancient pattern of breath that acts as a magical biological reset button. Imagine the sound of a slow, deep intake of air, followed almost immediately by a second, shorter sip of breath, culminating in a long, luxurious, drawn-out exhalation. This sequence is known to neurobiologists as the physiological sigh. While we all do it unconsciously several times an hour to keep the delicate air sacs in our lungs inflated, the frequency of this specific breath is deeply connected to the personality trait of emotional stability. Individuals who naturally navigate the world with a calm, unruffled resilience use the physiological sigh far more effectively to constantly, quietly, bleed off the microscopic accumulations of daily stress. That double inhale pulls oxygen deep into the lowest, most relaxed chambers of the lungs, and the long, slow exhale sends a powerful, immediate signal up the vagus nerve, directly commanding the heart rate to slow down. It is the body's own built-in tranquilizer, a magnificent, self-soothing mechanism that prevents the minor irritations of life from ever taking deep root. You might even find your own breath naturally adopting this rhythm now. A deep, full breath in, a tiny sip more, and a long, incredibly slow release, letting the chest sink perfectly into the mattress. With the chest rising and falling in that heavy, peaceful rhythm, the hands, completely empty of their daily tasks, can finally lie still. Yet, during the day, the things those hands choose to hold become quiet, physical extensions of our emotional world. Imagine picking up a smooth, heavy, perfectly round stone from a riverbed, holding it in your palm until the cold rock slowly absorbs the heat of your own blood. For individuals who possess a highly sentimental, agreeable, and empathetic personality, objects do not remain mere objects for long. Through a psychological phenomenon linked to the endowment effect, these individuals unconsciously pour a fraction of their own emotional warmth into the inanimate world around them. Once they have held a cup, worn a sweater, or kept a small trinket on their desk, their brain fundamentally alters its perception of the item, assigning it a deep protective value that far exceeds its material worth. They physically feel a quiet, lingering resonance of their own energy within the object. It is a beautiful reflection of a heart that is so naturally giving, so primed for connection, that its love inevitably spills over, transforming the cold, ordinary materials of the physical world into a surrounding gallery of cherished, quiet companions. Even when we're not holding objects of profound sentimental value, the simple, idle movements of our hands across a blank piece of paper offer a breathtakingly clear window into the hidden architecture of our thoughts. Picture the edge of a notebook during a long, quiet lecture, the margins slowly filling with intricate, absent-minded ink drawings. The specific geometry of these doodles is a direct, unconscious translation of our core personality traits. Psychologists analysing the shapes people draw when their conscious minds are occupied have found that highly conscientious, fiercely organised individuals naturally gravitate toward drawing squares, rigid grids, precise triangles, and interconnected boxes. Their inner world desires structure, and their hands automatically seek to impose logical, secure borders upon the blank page. Conversely, those with a high degree of openness to experience, the natural dreamers and abstract thinkers, unconsciously draw flowing waves, endless spirals, soft circles, and completely asymmetrical organic forms. Their minds reject rigid containment, preferring the fluid, boundaryless exploration of the unknown. Your mind is a brilliant silent architect, constantly revealing its preferred way of organizing the universe through the gentle, looping, or structured movements of your pen. That need for movement is not always confined to the tip of a pen. Sometimes, it humours the entire body in a low, continuous frequency. Imagine the quiet, rhythmic tapping of a foot beneath a wooden desk, or the smooth, endless spinning of a silver ring around a finger. While society often misinterprets these micro-movements as signs of anxiety, the study of non-exercise activity thermogenesis reveals a completely different, deeply empowering truth about our character. Constant, subtle fidgeting is overwhelmingly correlated with high levels of extroversion and high baseline cognitive energy. The nervous system of a highly dynamic personality is perpetually generating a surplus of electrical excitement, an overflow of curiosity and engagement that literally cannot be contained by sitting perfectly still. The tapping foot is not a sign of distress. It is the physical engine of the mind idling at a high, vibrant speed, keeping the brain perfectly stimulated and ready to jump into the vibrant flow of life at a moment's notice. But here, in the dark, that magnificent engine is finally given permission to turn off. The toes can stop their tapping, the fingers can unclench. The body can completely surrender its kinesthetic energy to the heavy, gravitational pull of the bed, perfectly still and profoundly safe. As the body embraces that total heavy stillness, the face relaxes into its most natural, unguarded state, revealing the subtle imperfections that actually draw the world closer to us. Picture a marble statue from antiquity, its features carved with flawless, absolute mathematical symmetry, beautiful but strangely cold and distant. Now, imagine the face of someone you deeply love, noticing the way one eyebrow rests just a fraction of an inch higher than the other, or how their smile pulls slightly more to the left. In the realm of interpersonal psychology, perfect facial symmetry is often subconsciously perceived as unapproachable or aloof. It is the tiny, unique asymmetries, the physical quirks and subtle imbalances that the human brain instinctively codes as warm, relatable, and trustworthy. We are biologically wired to seek out the beautiful, minor imperfections in others because flawlessness feels like an impenetrable wall, while asymmetry feels like an open door. Your specific face, with all of its magnificent, completely unique irregularities, is not a deviation from perfection. It is a perfectly designed, highly evolved invitation for human connection. The soft, resting expression you wear right now is a masterpiece of approachable human warmth. And yet, there are hours when that warm, inviting face needs to retreat entirely from the gaze of the world, seeking the profound, restorative nourishment of absolute solitude. Imagine a single, warmly lit window in a dark, quiet house, where someone sits alone, perfectly comfortable in the silence. There is a massive biological difference between the painful ache of loneliness and the deeply chosen healing state of solitude. When an introverted or highly reflective personality consciously chooses to be alone, their brain does not power down into isolation. Instead, functional MRI scans reveal that a magnificent sprawling neural highway called the default mode network completely illuminates. This network is the absolute epicenter of human imagination, profound self-reflection, and complex creative problem-solving. In the absence of external social demands, the mind finally has the bandwidth to turn its brilliant spotlight inward, untangling the complex emotional threads of the day, synthesizing new, brilliant ideas, and wandering through the vast, starlit library of its own memories. For the reflective soul, an empty room is never truly empty. It is the most crowded, vibrant, and infinitely beautiful sanctuary of all. As you rest in your own quiet sanctuary tonight, the boundaries of that room gently expanding into the vastness of the dream world, you can marvel at the endless, intricate ways your spirit has uniquely adapted to the journey of living, preparing to uncover even more of the subtle, invisible forces that shape the light and the shadow of who you are. To understand the deepest, most foundational roots of those shadows and lights, we can look inward to the very core of our physical being, specifically to the slow, rolling, oceanic wave of our internal body temperature. Imagine a deep, subterranean thermal spring, hidden far beneath the frost of the earth, its heat rising and falling with an ancient, unstoppable rhythm. Inside the human body, the hypothalamus acts as a brilliant, silent thermostat, guiding our core temperature through a beautifully predictable daily wave, dropping to its absolute lowest point in the heavy depths of the night, and rising steadily toward the golden light of the late afternoon. Yet chronobiologists have discovered that the exact slope, speed, and timing of this thermal wave are uniquely and profoundly tied to your personality. For natural morning types, often characterized by high conscientiousness, an affinity for structure, and reliable emotional stability, this internal thermal rise happens steeply and early, bringing the mind to a crisp, clear alertness just as the first birds begin to sing. For night owls, who consistently score much higher in traits of openness, fluid intelligence, and creative adaptability. This thermal wave peaks significantly later, bathing the brain in its warmest, most vibrant and active state precisely when the rest of the world goes perfectly dark. You are literally, biologically warming up to the world on a deeply unique, highly personal schedule. Right now, in the absolute stillness of your room, your core temperature is beginning its slow, natural, necessary descent, gently cooling the massive physical engine of the body, allowing the heavy, comforting, protective blanket of sleep to draw beautifully closer. As that vast internal physical engine slowly cools and quiets, the very boundary between our skin and the outside air reveals another hidden, deeply sensory dimension of our character. Picture standing entirely alone in an old dust-lit antique shop, running your fingertips lightly over the deeply worn oiled grain of a massive oak table, the cool, shocking smoothness of polished brass, and the rough, heavy, intricate weave of a vintage woolen tapestry. Psychologists studying the physical expression of character have identified a specific, measurable personality trait known as the need for touch. This is not merely a passing preference, but a distinct, profound cognitive processing style. Individuals who score exceptionally high on this scale, often those with highly open, deeply empathetic and exquisitely attuned personalities, literally extract much more complex, meaningful information from the world through their fingertips than through their eyes alone. Their highly sensitive nervous systems are intricately wired to understand reality through texture, weight, and subtle variations in temperature. For these beautifully tactile, grounded souls, simply seeing an object from a distance is only half the story. True understanding and deep psychological comfort require the physical, anchoring reality of actual contact. The mind builds its deepest trust through the simple act of touch. As you lie resting in the dim light, you might naturally notice the specific, comforting texture of the fabric immediately beneath your hands, the soft, woven threads holding you securely, a quiet, tactile, undeniably real reassurance that you are anchored, grounded, and perfectly safe in this exact fleeting moment. That profound sense of safety extends invisibly outward from the boundary of your skin, forming a silent, breathing, protective bubble around your physical form. Imagine dropping a single, smooth pebble into the center of a perfectly still black pond, watching the first, immediate ring of water expand slightly outward before holding its shape, hovering over the surface. In the complex world of neuroscience, this protective, invisible perimeter is known as peripersonal space. It is the specific three-dimensional zone of air immediately surrounding our bodies that our parietal lobes unconsciously, constantly map as a direct extension of our physical selves. Fascinatingly, the radius of this invisible magnetic field expands and contracts dynamically, depending entirely on our core personality. Deeply introverted individuals whose delicate nervous systems are highly sensitive to the sudden chaos of external stimuli naturally project a significantly larger, wider peripersonal space. Their biological radar requires a much thicker physical buffer to feel entirely comfortable, ensuring that the heavy, unpredictable energetic demands of the world do not overwhelm their quiet, carefully maintained internal balance. Extroverts, who naturally crave that dynamic friction and vibrant social connection, maintain a much tighter, thinner perimeter, allowing the chaotic, beautiful world to come remarkably close without triggering any alarm. It is a brilliant, invisible, floating architecture of comfort. Right now, the solid walls of your room provide the ultimate vast, unbreachable perimeter. The body grows wonderfully heavier, the invisible boundaries soften and dissolve, and you do not need to defend your space against anything at all. Looking out from the absolute center of that safe, quiet, undefended space, the very way our eyes choose to move across a landscape paints a clear, undeniable, and beautiful portrait of our deepest internal priorities. Imagine standing on a high, wrought-iron balcony overlooking a vibrant, sprawling, deeply shadowed city square exactly at dusk. Some people will instantly, instinctively lock their gaze onto the specific illuminated faces of the strangers walking far below, continuously searching for fleeting micro-expressions, shared laughter, and the quiet hidden signs of human connection. Others will naturally sweep their eyes upward and outward, tracing the sharp geometric lines of the ancient architecture, the shifting, violet colours of the sunset, or the intricate mathematical patterns of the cobblestones. Advanced eye-tracking technology has revealed that this sudden visual divergence is deeply, biologically tied to our baseline levels of agreeableness and extroversion. Highly sociable, deeply empathetic personalities possess a profound, involuntary social gaze bias. Their eyes automatically, rapidly, and relentlessly seek out the biological warmth of other human faces, prioritizing the living narrative over the environmental detail. Those who lean toward deep introversion or high systemic conscientiousness often distribute their visual attention far more evenly and methodically across the inanimate background, absorbing the entire structural, quiet context of the world. Your eyes are not just passive, mechanical cameras, they are active, loving, highly opinionated curators, perfectly trained to find exactly what your soul values most in the vast, complex, overflowing gallery of existence. This innate biological desire to explore specific, highly valued aspects of the world eventually trickles down from the complex movements of the eyes to the very tip of the tongue. Picture wandering slowly through a bustling, dimly lit, incredibly vibrant night market in a foreign distant city, the humid air thick with the fragrant, completely unfamiliar smoke of exotic crushed spices, roasting meats, and sweet, complex medicinal herbs. The human willingness to step bravely into that market and intentionally taste something entirely unknown is driven by a measurable psychological trait called food neophilia. It is the direct biological cousin of the personality trait known as openness to experience. The exact same mind that joyfully embraces abstract art, dense, complex literature, and unpredictable wandering travel is the very same mind that finds profound, intense psychological reward in the sudden shock of a new, completely complex flavour. The intricate neural pathways that process intellectual curiosity are deeply, historically entangled with the ancient gustatory centres of the brain. When a highly open personality tastes a beautifully strange, completely unfamiliar dish, the brain releases a quiet, deeply satisfying, powerful rush of dopamine, rewarding them not just for acquiring calories, but for daring to expand the physical borders of their known world. It is a beautiful, elegant reminder that our character is a unified, seamless ecosystem. The quiet bravery of the searching mind is mirrored perfectly, flawlessly, by the bravery of the physical senses. That unified, seamless ecosystem guarantees that our physical bodies do not just passively reflect our internal emotional state, they actively, continually, and powerfully create it from the ground up. Imagine a tall, ancient, massive pine tree standing entirely alone at the very edge of a windswept cliff, its thick trunk perfectly straight, perfectly aligned with the heavy pull of gravity, its highest branches reaching effortlessly and bravely toward the open sky. When human beings intentionally adopt this exact same, perfectly aligned, open physical posture, sitting up straight, with the chest broad, the spine lengthened, and the shoulders completely relaxed, we trigger a magnificent, quiet cascade of profound psychological changes known to science as embodied cognition. The simple, physical act of occupying space with quiet, undeniable confidence sends an immediate, powerful biological signal back up the vagus nerve directly to the brain. The mind receives this undeniable physical data and instantly begins to lower the production of cortisol, the heavy hormone of stress, while gently, steadily elevating the hormones associated with quiet resolve, absolute security, and profound comfort. You do not ever need to think your way into feeling brave or secure. The body can physically gently lead the mind toward total peace. And just as an open, vertical posture commands resilience in the bright light of day, a soft, yielding, completely horizontal, relaxed posture in the dark commands the mind to entirely surrender. The breath settles gracefully into a long, slow, hypnotic rhythm, and the muscles melt into the sheets, telling the brain with absolute, undeniable physical certainty that it is finally time to sleep. As that breath moves incredibly slowly in and out, it passes gently through the delicate, vibrating folds of the vocal cords, the quiet, hidden instruments that broadcast the absolute depth of our character outward into the open air. Picture the deep, resonant, impossibly rich, echoing sound of a massive brass gong being struck softly in the center of an empty stone temple. The resulting sound waves travel not just through the cool air, but directly through the solid floor, felt physically, heavily, in the very center of the chest. In human speech, the fundamental pitch and the deep resonance of a person's voice hold quiet, profound, and highly accurate correlations with their underlying personality structure. While voice pitch is heavily influenced by the basic architecture of our biology, psychologists have found that individuals who naturally speak from the deep, resonant, relaxed center of their chest, effortlessly utilizing the full, massive acoustic cavity of their body, often score significantly higher in traits of emotional stability, perceived trustworthiness, and steady, unwavering extroversion. They are physically projecting their internal psychological grounding. Their voice is safely anchored in the heavy, secure, unshakable center of their physical form, radiating a calming, subsonic, invisible reassurance to everyone fortunate enough to be listening. Even when you're completely silent, lying here in the dark, the slow, rhythmic, beautiful movement of your breathing is quietly tuning that internal instrument, preparing it to resonate with perfect, effortless, deep peace when the morning finally comes. The specific way we will remember the mornings of our past reveals yet another brilliant, deeply protective and beautiful mechanism hidden deep within the sprawling architecture of our minds. Imagine recalling a perfectly beautiful, golden, late summer afternoon from your very early childhood, perhaps the feeling of running incredibly fast across a vast, sunlit, freshly cut lawn. When you view this specific memory in your mind's eye right now, do you see it directly through your own two eyes, exactly as you originally experienced it? Or do you see yourself from a slight distance, like a character in a movie playing softly on a glowing, silent screen? This fascinating automatic shift between the first person and the third person perspective in our episodic memory is a quiet, profound, and highly effective tool used continuously by the personality trait of emotional stability. When we experience something highly intense, stressful, or emotionally overwhelming, a resilient, highly agreeable, and stable mind will naturally, over the passage of time, beautifully shift the memory from a sharp first-person view to a softer, distant third-person perspective. By mentally stepping backward and viewing ourselves from a safe, quiet distance, the brain brilliantly, softly diffuses the sharp, cutting emotional intensity of the moment, flawlessly preserving the important narrative facts while gently washing away the heavy, residual stress. It is a magnificent, profound internal kindness. Your mind is constantly, gently, and lovingly editing the complex movies of your past, ensuring that the massive archive of your life remains a place of wisdom, soft reflection, and quiet, enduring peace. This incredible, quiet resilience of the mind is often perfectly mirrored by a stunning, undeniable physical resilience in the body, particularly when we are faced with the harsh, biting, extreme conditions of the natural world. Imagine stepping out of a warm, cedar-lined sauna and immediately plunging into a pool of perfectly still, icy, glass-clear, freezing mountain water. The initial physical shock is profound and breathless, but for certain specific personalities, it is remarkably quickly replaced by a deep, glowing, massive internal fire. Rigorous research into thermal regulation and human character has uncovered a fascinating, undeniably strong link between high emotional stability and the body's physical, biological ability to endure and even beautifully thrive in the extreme cold. Individuals who possess a naturally calm, deeply unruffled, and highly stress-resistant personality often demonstrate a vastly superior, measurable ability to activate brown adipose tissue, a specific ancient type of fat that literally burns cellular energy to generate immense radiating physical heat in direct response to freezing temperatures. Their psychological internal calmness translates instantly into a highly efficient, perfectly regulated, brilliant physical response. They do not panic in the cold. Their bodies simply, powerfully adapt, radiating a quiet, massive internal warmth that safely holds the freezing world at bay. Here, wrapped securely in the soft, heavy layers of the night, the mind can finally drift. You do not need to generate any heat to fight the cold. You're surrounded by a perfect, ambient, heavy warmth that requires absolutely no effort, no energy, and no thought to constantly maintain. Surrounded entirely by that effortless, profound comfort, the mind's sweeping, magnificent influence extends even to the way we physically perceive the fundamental, glowing spectrum of light. Picture a vast, endless, rolling field of massive sunflowers turning their heavy golden heads in perfect unison toward the blinding light of the midday sun. The colour yellow has always been poetically, culturally linked to the emotion of joy, but neuroscientists have recently discovered a literal, undeniably biological connection between a sunny, highly optimistic disposition and the specific way the human retina actively processes light. Individuals who score exceptionally high in extroversion and positive affect, those beautiful souls who naturally, effortlessly look for the good, the bright, and the profoundly hopeful in daily life, literally perceive the physical world with a higher degree of visual contrast. Their highly active visual cortex is biologically primed to process colours, particularly the warm, radiant frequencies of yellow and bright gold, as slightly more vivid, more saturated, and significantly brighter than someone currently experiencing a long, heavy season of melancholy. Their internal psychological joy acts as a physical, biological glowing filter placed directly over their eyes, actively brightening the literal painted hues of their surrounding environment. It is a breathtaking, beautiful reality. The happier the soul, the more vivid and magnificent the painting of the world actually becomes. Your personality is the ultimate, masterful, quiet artist, constantly, endlessly mixing the colours of your reality, preparing to blend them gently now, slowly washing away the bright yellows and golds of the waking day, and trading them for the soft, deep, velvety indigos, the sweeping, silent purples, and the vast, comforting, endless blacks of the dreaming mind. Within those vast, comforting, endless blacks of the dreaming mind, a spectacular, invisible theatre is quietly preparing to open its doors. Imagine, for a moment, an antique wooden table in the centre of an empty room, and upon it sits a single, perfectly ripe, dark red apple. For some people, closing their eyes and visualising this scene produces a picture as brilliantly vivid, perfectly textured, and flawlessly lit as a high-definition photograph. For others, the mind's eye is a sanctuary of pure abstract concepts, completely devoid of visual images, a fascinating cognitive variation known as aphantasia. Psychologists mapping the sprawling landscapes of human imagination have discovered that the vividness of our internal visual world is an exquisite mirror of our waking personality. Individuals who experience hyperphantasia, an intensely, radiantly visual imagination consistently score remarkably high in openness to experience, their minds overflowing with a deep natural hunger for sensory richness, intricate poetry, and complex emotional resonance. Conversely, those whose internal worlds are conceptual rather than visual often navigate reality with an incredibly high degree of logical conscientiousness, their brains efficiently prioritizing structural facts over decorative imagery. Neither mind is lacking. They are simply two completely different, magnificent ways the human soul chooses to build its private universe in the dark. Sometimes, the most stunning sparks in that private universe are not ignited by images at all, but by sounds so delicate, so impossibly quiet, that they feel like a physical touch. Picture the sound of a heavy textured page of an old book being turned incredibly slowly, or the soft rhythmic sweeping of a dry brush against a piece of rough canvas. For a specific, beautifully wired subset of the population, these gentle acoustic triggers send a warm, sparkling electric wave of profound relaxation, travelling down the scalp and settling heavily into the spine. This phenomenon, known as the Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, or ASMR, is deeply, intricately tied to the very architecture of our character. Extensive personality assessments reveal that those who experience this magical, physical translation of sound are vastly more likely to possess a highly empathetic, deeply compassionate, and profoundly open personality. Their nervous systems are beautifully porous, allowing the gentle, quiet aesthetics of the outside world to cross the boundary of the skin and physically, literally soothe the brain. It is a stunning biological gift, a reminder that the mind is capable of finding immense, healing comfort in the tiniest, quietest whispers of the physical world. As those quiet whispers fade into the background, you can feel that same wave of heavy, sparkling relaxation moving through your own shoulders now. The jaw unclenches, the body grows noticeably heavier, sinking flawlessly into the mattress while the mind simply drifts. As the body settles into that heavy gravitational comfort, the exact unconscious geometry your limbs adopt against the sheets begins to tell its own silent, revealing story. Imagine a person curled tightly on their side, their knees pulled up safely toward their chest, wrapping their arms around a soft pillow. The specific preferred postures we assume in our deepest sleep are ancient, biological reflections of our waking defensive structures and our underlying character. Sleep researchers observing the physical habits of the unconscious have noted that the incredibly common fetal position is strongly favoured by individuals who present a tough, resilient, capable exterior to the waking world, but who protect a deeply sensitive, profoundly tender, and highly empathetic core. They curl inward to physically guard the heart they give so freely during the day. In beautiful contrast, those who naturally sprawl outward on their backs, their arms thrown open in a posture known as the starfish, often possess a highly agreeable, fiercely loyal personality, operating as exceptional, non-judgmental listeners for their friends. Even when all conscious control is entirely surrendered, your magnificent body continues to quietly communicate the specific, beautiful shape of your soul through the pure poetry of your resting form. Before those resting forms entirely surrender to the deep phases of the night, the last images the eyes process can radically alter the speed at which we find peace. Picture looking out a frosted window pane at the incredibly complex branching silhouette of a massive oak tree against a pale grey sky, or watching the infinitely repeating geometric spirals of a delicate fern frond in the deep woods. These naturally occurring, infinitely repeating patterns are known as fractals. When the human eye perceives these specific mathematical shapes in nature, the brain does not need to work to process them. It instantly, joyfully recognizes the fundamental code of the universe. For individuals with highly sensitive, deeply reflective, or easily overstimulated personalities, viewing natural fractals triggers a massive, immediate surge of soothing alpha waves in the cerebral cortex. The mind recognizes these patterns as the ultimate symbol of a predictable, perfectly ordered, and enduringly safe world. You do not need to be in a forest to feel this effect. The simple, rhythmic, fractal-like repetition of your own slow breathing is currently sending that exact same signal of flawless, geometric peace deep into the oldest regions of your brain. When the brain is flooded with that geometric, flawless peace, an incredible, almost magical shift happens to the very borders of our physical vision. Imagine standing on the crest of a high, grassy hill on a perfect summer afternoon. When we are gripped by anxiety or heavy stress, our sympathetic nervous system actively constricts our peripheral vision, forcing us into a narrow, hyper-focused tunnel of immediate survival. But the broaden and build theory of positive psychology has demonstrated a breathtaking physiological truth. When a person cultivates a calm, joyous, or deeply contented personality, their actual physical field of vision beautifully expands. The relaxed, parasympathetic state commands the muscles around the eyes to soften, quite literally allowing more of the horizon, more light, and more of the surrounding world to enter the retina. A peaceful soul physically sees a wider, grander, more connected version of reality. As the profound comfort of the night deepens around you, your internal vision is expanding in this exact same effortless way, opening up to a vast, boundless landscape of pure, unhurried potential. That expanding, unhurried vision radically changes how we navigate the massive physical obstacles of the Earth itself. Picture walking toward the base of a very tall, incredibly steep mountain path, carrying a canvas backpack on your shoulders. The science of embodied perception has uncovered a stunning reality. The physical steepness of that hill and the literal gravitational weight of that backpack are entirely subjective illusions completely controlled by our core personality traits. Individuals who naturally possess high psychological resilience, deep-seated optimism, and a strong sense of internal self-efficacy actually physically perceive the hill as having a gentler, more forgiving slope. When they are asked to estimate the angle, their resilient brains artificially flatten the terrain. Furthermore, a heavy, optimistic heart makes the physical weight on their shoulders feel measurably lighter. The mind actively alters the physical dimensions of the universe to perfectly match our courage. You're not a passive observer of a cold, rigid reality. Your brave, enduring character is a quiet, magical force that gently reshapes the geometry of the world, ensuring that no mountain is ever too steep for you to eventually, peacefully climb. But tonight, there are no mountains to climb and no weights to carry. The backpack has been completely emptied. You can simply let go of the straps, allowing the spine to decompress and the heavy muscles of the back to melt completely away into the warm, supporting darkness. To climb the mountains of the waking day, the body relies on the steady, powerful engine of the heart, and our individual connection to that internal rhythm is a hidden, profound cornerstone of our empathy. Imagine lying completely still in a silent, dark room, entirely focused on the center of your chest. Without touching your wrist or your neck, can you naturally feel the exact pulsing rhythm of your own heartbeat? This incredible biological sensitivity is known as interoceptive awareness. Psychologists mapping the intersection of biology and emotion have discovered that people who possess a highly attuned, highly accurate ability to feel their own internal organs functioning tend to experience the world with a vastly richer, more vivid, and deeply intense emotional palette. Because they are so intimately connected to the physical sensations of their own life force, they are remarkably, profoundly better at reading the subtle emotional cues of the people around them. High interoception is the physical bedrock of profound empathy. Your heart is not just pumping blood, its quiet, continuous drumming is teaching your mind how to beautifully, perfectly understand the feelings of the entire human race. The heart that beats with such profound, empathetic sensitivity is actively protected by one of the most beautiful healing traits the human personality can ever cultivate: the quiet capacity for true forgiveness. Picture a heavy iron chain lying on a cold stone floor, and then imagine the sudden echoing sound of the lock snapping open, the heavy links falling completely away. For a long time, forgiveness was viewed simply as a moral or philosophical choice, but modern cardiology has revealed it to be a massive physical shield. Individuals who naturally lean toward a forgiving disposition, those who refuse to hold on to the heavy, corrosive weight of ancient grudges, enjoy significantly lower resting heart rates, drastically reduced arterial tension, and a remarkably fortified immune system. When the mind intentionally lets go of a past wrong, the parasympathetic nervous system immediately halts the release of stress hormones, allowing the blood vessels to open wide and the healing, restorative blood to flow freely. Forgiveness is not just a gift you give to someone else. It is a profound, life-saving biological act of mercy you grant to your own beautiful beating heart. Sometimes, the journey toward that deep internal mercy requires the quiet, cleansing passage of a physical release. Imagine the feeling of listening to a piece of classical music so overwhelmingly, intensely beautiful that a sudden, unexpected tear escapes and tracks slowly down your cheek. The propensity to cry easily at moments of profound beauty, deep kindness, or overwhelming aesthetic grace is a stunning marker of a highly agreeable, intensely empathetic personality. These are not tears of sorrow. They are basal and emotional tears, and they contain a vastly different chemical composition than the tears we shed when cutting an onion. The emotional tears of a sensitive soul are incredibly rich in leucine and kephalin, a natural, powerful painkiller, and their release triggers a massive, comforting flood of oxytocin within the brain. Crying at beauty is the body's ultimate, magnificent, self-soothing mechanism, a biological reset that washes away accumulated emotional static and leaves behind a profound, crystalline clarity. It is a sign of a heart so beautifully full that it simply, gracefully overflows. When those quiet, cleansing tears finally dry, the space they leave behind is incredibly fertile ground for the most deeply connecting force in the human repertoire: a warm, shared, and genuine laugh. Picture sitting around a wooden dining table long after the meal is finished, the room glowing with candlelight as someone tells a story that causes the entire group to burst into sudden, joyous, unrestrained laughter. The specific style of humour we naturally employ is a perfect, flawless mirror of our core character. People who utilise affiliative humour, the kind of warm, inclusive, gentle joking meant specifically to bring people together and ease social tension, score incredibly high on measures of emotional intelligence and deep sociability. This type of humour is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It is an unconscious, brilliant strategy to lower the collective cortisol levels of everyone present. A warm laugh is a massive, invisible neurological hug, logical. It acts as a profound social glue, synchronizing the brainwaves of everyone in the room and building an invisible, indestructible architecture of belonging. As the echoes of that beautiful shared joy settle into the quiet corners of your memory, the mind is free to wander even deeper, drifting away from the lighted rooms of the present and sinking softly into the profound, mysterious ways our personalities are shaped by the invisible, silent passing of time itself. That invisible, silent passing of time itself is perhaps the most profound, masterful sculptor of the human character, gently carving away the excess and leaving behind a structure of stunning, quiet clarity. Imagine a massive ancient hourglass made of thick, blown glass, sitting perfectly still in a shaft of pale moonlight. As the fine, silver sand falls endlessly, silently from the top chamber to the bottom, the mind undergoes a magnificent documented transformation known to psychologists as socio-emotional selectivity theory. In our bright, sprawling youth, our personalities are often wide open, aggressively seeking vast amounts of new information expanding our social networks and anxiously preparing for a distant theoretical future. But as the internal clock senses the quiet, beautiful finitude of time, a profound shift occurs in the architecture of our priorities. The resilient, maturing personality completely loses its appetite for superficial drama and shallow connections. Instead, it turns its immense, accumulated energy directly toward the present moment, actively curating a life of deep, profound emotional meaning. We organically, effortlessly prune our social circles, letting the acquaintances fade into the mist while fiercely, lovingly protecting the few, vital souls who bring us true, resonant joy. This is not a shrinking of your world. It is a masterful, brilliant concentration of your heart's energy, transforming the scattered light of youth into a warm, powerful, tightly focused laser of pure appreciation for the absolute beauty of the now. To successfully curate that quiet, profound joy, the maturing mind must also master the gentle, necessary art of letting go. Picture a vast, sun-drenched autumn forest, where thousands of ancient, towering trees are simultaneously, silently releasing their heavy, dry, golden leaves to the forest floor. In the landscape of cognitive psychology, this graceful release is recognized as adaptive forgetting, and it is an incredibly vital component of a highly stable, emotionally healthy personality. We often mistakenly believe that a perfect memory is a steel trap, capturing and holding on to every single detail of our existence. But a truly resilient mind operates much more like a flowing river than a static vault. It possesses the biological and cognitive wisdom to peacefully erase the unnecessary, trivial, or mildly stressful static of daily life. People with high emotional hardiness do not cling to the minor irritations, the fleeting embarrassments, or the sharp, petty grievances of the past. They let them detach and fall away, just like those dry autumn leaves, composting them into the soil to nourish the deeper roots of their overall well-being. Your own mind possesses this exact same, brilliant capacity for release. The heavy, complicated thoughts of this waking day are simply detaching now, drifting down and settling softly into the earth, leaving your branches perfectly bare, unburdened, and entirely at peace. As those conscious thoughts finally settle into the earth, the physical brain enters a state of profound, highly organized maintenance that perfectly mirrors the personality trait of conscientiousness. Imagine a dedicated, silent crew of caretakers washing the sweeping, empty cobblestone streets of a grand, moonlit city, ensuring every stone is flawlessly clean before the sun rises. Deep within your skull, an intricate network known as the glymphatic system performs this exact, beautiful ritual during the heaviest phases of your sleep. As the neurons shrink slightly, a gentle wave of cerebrospinal fluid washes through the brain tissue, literally clearing away the metabolic debris and cellular exhaust that accumulated during your waking hours. Fascinatingly, researchers have noted that individuals who naturally score high in conscientiousness, those who deeply love order, structure, and a tidy environment in their daily lives, often experience more robust, highly efficient cycles of this deep, slow-wave restorative sleep. Their deep psychological drive for harmony and cleanliness extends all the way down into their unconscious biology. The mind is physically organizing itself, sweeping the grand, silent halls of your memory and preparing a flawless, immaculate, clean slate for the morning. You do not need to manage this process. You can simply surrender to it, knowing your body is naturally moving toward perfect internal order. That beautiful appreciation for the physical passage of time is also reflected in the quiet, inanimate objects we choose to surround ourselves with, and the deep psychological comfort we draw from them. Think of a beautifully weathered, heavy wooden door on an old cottage, its paint softly peeling in layers of pale blue and grey, its solid brass handle polished to a warm, glowing gold by decades of human touch. The traditional Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi, The ability to find deep, profound beauty in the imperfect, the impermanent and the aged is strongly, beautifully correlated with the personality trait of openness to experience. A mind that is truly open to the vast, complex, breathtaking poetry of existence does not demand sterile, factory-made perfection. It finds a deep, settling, resonant comfort in the visual evidence of survival. Highly open personalities are naturally drawn to the frayed edges of an old blanket, the cracked glaze of a handmade ceramic mug, or the intricate worn patina of antique leather. They see the passage of time not as a thief stealing away youth, but as a masterful, patient artist adding irreplaceable character, depth, and history to the canvas of the world. It is a philosophy that allows the soul to relax completely, understanding that you too do not need to be flawless to be profoundly, fundamentally beautiful. That same open, forgiving mind also finds an exquisite sense of peace in the quiet, transitional spaces between the harsh light and the total dark. Imagine standing entirely alone in a lush walled garden exactly at twilight, that specific suspended moment when the sharp, vibrant colours of the daytime dissolve beautifully into the cool, silvery greys and deep indigos of the evening. Psychologists measure a fascinating cognitive trait called tolerance of ambiguity, which dictates exactly how comfortable and secure we feel when situations are not perfectly clear, strictly defined, or easily categorized. Highly resilient, adaptable, and open personalities absolutely thrive in this psychological twilight. When faced with the vast unknowns of life, their nervous systems do not panic, and they do not rush to turn on the harsh, blinding, anxious lights of absolute certainty. They are perfectly capable of sitting peacefully in the unknown, intuitively understanding that life's most beautiful, profound mysteries almost always exist in the soft, undefined shadows. You're completely safe in this soft shadow right now. There is absolutely nothing you need to figure out, nothing you must perfectly define, and no problems you have to solve. The body sinks deeper, the jaw relaxes entirely, and the breath simply finds its own slow, perfect, undefined rhythm. Within that perfect, slow rhythm, the sheer absence of noise eventually transforms into something incredibly tangible and deeply physical. Picture an empty, ancient stone cathedral, so impossibly vast and perfectly proportioned that the silence inside it seems to have a distinct weight, a soft texture, and a deep, resonant, comforting hum. As our personalities mature and settle into themselves, our relationship with silence undergoes a spectacular, life-altering evolution. In the bright, chaotic energy of our youth, high extroversion often perceives silence as a threatening void, an empty space desperately waiting to be filled with conversation, music, or distraction. But as we cultivate inner stability, emotional depth, and a quiet sense of self-assurance, silence completely stops being an absence. It becomes a rich, heavy, comforting presence. The mature mind learns to wrap itself in silence like a thick, heavy, velvet cloak. It becomes the ultimate acoustic sanctuary, the only space wide enough and safe enough where the fragmented, tired pieces of the self can finally seamlessly reassemble. As the noise of the world falls entirely away from your room tonight, you can feel that silence holding you, a massive, invisible, protective architecture keeping the chaos beautifully at bay. When we immerse ourselves completely in that silent, protective sanctuary, the very physical boundaries of the body begin to beautifully, softly blur. Imagine floating effortlessly on your back on the surface of a pitch-black, perfectly warm, highly dense pool of salt water, feeling absolutely no gravity, sensing no shift in temperature, and hearing absolutely no sound. In the complete and total absence of external sensory input, the highly stable, internally grounded personality experiences a magnificent psychological phenomenon known as ego dissolution. Without the constant, exhausting friction of the outside world pushing against the skin, the rigid borders of the identity simply melt away. the sense of self expands infinitely outward, merging peacefully and completely with the surrounding water and the encompassing dark. It reveals a breathtaking truth about the human character. At our absolute core, beneath the loud, demanding labels of our daily identity, our fundamental state of being is one of infinite, weightless, boundless expansion. You're not confined to the shape of your body or the history of your past. In the quiet of the night, you're as vast, as deep, and as limitless as the starry sky itself, floating perfectly in the dark. We unconsciously remember this profound, weightless expansion from the very earliest, most protected beginnings of our lives. Recall the deep, hypnotic, irresistible comfort of lying in a heavy canvas hammock, being pushed in a slow, gentle, incredibly rhythmic sway beneath the sweeping shade of a massive willow tree. The profound, immediate relaxation we feel from this slow, rhythmic rocking is deeply, biologically tied to our vestibular system, and its powerfully soothing effect bypass all personality differences, working universally on the human brain. This slow physical oscillation perfectly mimics the resting rhythm of a slow human heartbeat and the ancient, pre-conscious, cellular memory of being carried safely in the dark. Neuroscientists have shown that this gentle rocking motion physically forces the brainwaves to slow down, naturally synchronizing the electrical activity of the mind into the slow, rolling, heavy delta waves of deep sleep. It proves that no matter how complex, how driven, or how independent your personality has become in the waking world, your body never, ever forgets the foundational biological language of being held, rocked, and perfectly protected. You can feel the invisible, gentle sway of your own breath now, rising and falling, rocking you slowly and safely deeper into the mattress. As you're held and rocked by the quiet night, the mind occasionally drifts toward the specific comforting scents that have shaped your intellectual journey. Imagine opening a massive, incredibly heavy, leather-bound book from a forgotten century, burying your nose deep into the yellowed pages and inhaling that distinct, sweet, almost vanilla-like aroma of aged paper. This beautiful, recognizable scent is actually the result of the slow, natural chemical breakdown of lignin, the complex organic polymer that binds wood fibers together. For individuals who possess a remarkably high degree of epistemic curiosity, a core personality trait driven by the deep, joyous, unquenchable desire to build knowledge and understand the universe, this specific scent serves as a powerful, immediate neurochemical trigger. Simply breathing in the scent of an old book instantly lowers their resting heart rate, regulates their breathing, and produces a warm flush of comforting endorphins. The brain physically, chemically rewards the personality for simply standing in the presence of accumulated human wisdom. It turns the dusty aisles of a library into a literal biological sanctuary for the curious soul. But for tonight, you have gathered all the wisdom you could possibly need. The massive book of the day can finally close. The mind can simply rest its heavy cover, sinking wonderfully and completely into the soft, unwritten dark. As that heavy cover gracefully closes, you begin to step into the final, magical, mist-covered borderland that exists precisely between wakefulness and the deep dream world. Imagine walking slowly down a long, quiet, beautifully shadowed corridor, where the rigid laws of physics, time, and gravity slowly begin to gently bend, warp, and dissolve into soft light. This transitional state, known to science as hypnagogia, is a profound psychological threshold that every human being crosses every single night. However, for highly creative, profoundly open, and deeply imaginative personalities, this borderland is the most incredibly fertile, vibrant landscape of the entire mind. As the logical, strict executive functions of the prefrontal cortex gracefully power down and relinquish their tight control, the massive, humming subconscious is finally allowed to play completely freely. It begins to effortlessly throw up brilliant, spontaneous, hallucinatory images, beautifully loose associations and scattered poetic fragments of memory and colour. It is the mind's magnificent way of entirely unlacing its heavy shoes, taking off the rigid, heavy iron armour of waking logic and stepping softly, quietly into the fluid, boundless, breathtaking ocean of sleep. You can allow those strange, beautiful, fleeting images to simply wash over you now, watching them float by like glowing lanterns on a dark, quiet river, pulling you seamlessly and safely toward the deepest, most restorative rest of your life. As you linger in that fluid borderland where the final lanterns of thought drift away, there remains one last profound secret to share, a final wonder that bridges the microscopic architecture of your cells with the vast, ancient history of the Earth itself. Imagine a massive deep-sea diver's bell slowly descending into the crushing velvet silence of the abyss, where the only light is the faint bioluminescent pulse of creatures that have never seen the sun. Inside your brain, there is a similar quiet sanctuary called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master keeper of your time. But the most beautiful revelation of modern chronobiology is that the very proteins that govern your unique personality rhythms, the ones that decide if you're a creature of the dawn or a sentinel of the night, are ancient molecular fossils. These biological gears are so perfectly designed and so profoundly resilient that they have remained virtually unchanged for over 1 billion years. The specific rhythmic pulse of your character is not a fleeting modern invention. It is a direct rhythmic echo of the very first life forms that learned to breathe and rest in synchronization with the turning of the planet. When you feel the deep, heavy pull of sleep tonight, you're not just succumbing to a personal tiredness. You're participating in a 1 billion-year-old ceremony of restoration. Your personality, with all its beautiful complexity, is built upon a foundation of prehistoric light and shadow. You are a living, breathing testament to the endurance of life, carrying a deep cellular wisdom that knows exactly how to heal, how to grow, and how to find its way back to the center in the quiet of the dark. This is the ultimate gift of your character. You're never truly lost, for you are tethered to the very heartbeat of the world. The journey of the 101 wonders is now complete, and like a long silver ribbon of mist dissolving into the morning light, the need for words is beginning to fade away. You have travelled through the luminous networks of the brain, the hidden gardens of the gut, and the vast topographical landscapes of the soul. You have seen how the light of a summer birth, the scent of an old book, and the rhythm of a shared walk all weave together to create the magnificent tapestry of who you are. But as the final notes of this story linger in the air, you are invited to let every single one of these details go. You do not need to remember the science, the theories, or the facts. You do not need to hold on to the images or the insights. Like a handful of fine, dry sand being released into a gentle wind, allow the information to simply drift away. What is meant to stay will settle deep within the quiet soil of your subconscious, and what is meant to fade will vanish into the soft velvet dark. The mind is becoming very, very quiet now. The heavy work of understanding is finished. There is nothing left to learn, nothing left to visualize, and nothing left to do. Feel the immense supportive weight of the bed beneath you, carrying you without effort. Feel the cool, still air against your skin and the comforting, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest. The breath is so slow now, so shallow and peaceful, like the movement of a calm sea at low tide. Your shoulders have melted into the mattress. Your hands are perfectly still, open and relaxed. The tiny muscles around your eyes have smoothed out completely, and the space between your brows is vast and clear. You're sinking deeper into the soft, warm gravity of the earth. The world outside is distant, a quiet echo of a dream you once had. Here, there is only the dark, the warmth, and the absolute, unwavering safety of this moment. Everything is in its right place. You have reached the final shore. The water is warm, the night is long, and the rest is deep. You are held, you are safe, you are home, and now 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.